to the flag of the United States of America, or to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You want to state your name? Go ahead and state your name.
My name is Zoe Lorraine Christian. I am the Queen of Leesburg.
Tell that to everybody. Okay, we'll call our meeting order. Had an invitation. I pledge of allegiance. We'll now approve the minutes from the regular meeting held July 12, 2021. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Bury?
Yes.
Commissioner Jasper?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Chairperson Christian?
Yes. Item 3 is resolutions. Is the Carver Heights, Montclair area proposed redevelopment projects and programs. Do I have to introduce the resolution, please?
We don't have one. We don't have a resolution.
We don't have a resolution?
No, it says it, but it's not.
Oh, it's not a
It's
resolution?
a discussion.
Oh, just discussion?
With the
Okay.
kids, yeah.
All right. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Mendelson.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Ken Thomas, Housing Department. Mayor, what I want to do today is bring forth to the Carver Heights Montclair CRA Board some proposals, some ideas that the community has expressed throughout the years and over the last several months of ideas that they want to do to remove some of the slum and blight within the Carver Heights community. And as you look in the staff report, I described 4 different locations, at least for acquisition of property, and the others are for redevelopment or redesign or extension of roadways that will provide access in and out of the Carver Heights community that we hope that will create economic development and job creation within the community. I would like to start out with the first proposal, and that was acquiring property in the area of Griffin Road. And I want to be a little vague here today because, as our Commissioner Peterson knows, he's in that field. I don't want to sort of give anybody the impression that the city is trying to acquire their property without even approaching them first. So I'm talking in big numbers, and I'm not necessarily trying to identify a piece of property, but in the area of Tuskegee Avenue and Griffin Road, there's a possibility that we could possibly acquire some property for commercial development. In that particular area, we have a lot of vagrants, a lot of hangout, and it's really the front door of the Carver Heights community. And if we were able to acquire some of that land in that particular area and create commercial development, we believe that we could create some jobs and do what our CRA plan says, and that is eliminate slum and blighted conditions. Any questions thus far? As we're going along, you feel free to ask any of those questions if you may, that you may have regarding any of those properties. And the next property I want to talk about is the Thomas Avenue, Thomas Road property. That particular property has existing business. It is a heavily traveled roadway. There are some issues now with that particular property, but it is sort of like the back door of the Carver Heights community. And if we're able to open up that corridor, which is the back door, we could capture a lot of traffic for commercial development for the Carver Heights community. And the others deal with residential development. We have the Nebraska, Alabama property, which the city already owns. That is potential for residential or multifamily development that we could possibly, use and for our redevelopment purposes. And then there's the property on Chester. The mayor has talked about acquiring, or not acquiring, but at least cleaning up the Chester Street property. It's overgrown at the moment. We have a big homeless population that congregates there. And if we're able to clean that up, possibly create a activity center, not necessarily any residential or not commercial, because there's a lot of wetlands, but it could possibly connect to our Susan Street property. Any questions thus far?
Ken, I got a question on that one. You identified alternate key. Is the green, is that what the city owns, currently owns?
Yes.
Okay, even the one that kind of jogs around on McCormick, I guess that's that's on the other side of the church,
Yes, behind the,
or Mount Sinai. It's beside
yeah,
Mount
but-
Sinai, but that piece on the other side of like the retention pond.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One quick question, Ken. You said an activity center? Could you give us an idea, what would that look like?
You know, throughout, the state, there have been other cities and counties that have developed activity centers. They may have a band shell, that they may do outdoor activities. Some of it involves just creating a walking trail, putting in park equipment, putting in activity equipment. It's in close proximity to our park, so it begs for us to clean it up and remove the vagrants that are there now and try to create something that the community can use, because it's really a beautiful piece of property if you walk through it. It has wetlands out there, so I think we can really do something nice if we clean it up.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of the homeless population that lives there in those woods, so I know exactly what you're talking about, the area that you're referring to.
Right,
so.
exactly.
You on the computer?
So give it on that kind of area, and I like that idea, but I didn't see anything in the proposals about maybe trying to acquire the whole Birchwood area to connect. I mean, obviously it'd be bigger than just the CRA could handle, but maybe could help with. I don't know if that's something you've considered or.
Yeah. Actually, Al and I have talked about it extensively. But as I talked to him about it, it's a major takedown, and it's going to be pretty expensive. So, and it's in you're in close proximity to property that the city owns. It's not the best attractive piece of property. It is a problem. And I hate to say it, but it is a problem. And if we were going to approach it, it would probably be in our second or third phase because of the expense of trying to take it down. That's one approach. The other approach is buying one at a time, because it does come up quite often that someone is trying to sell their property in Birchwood. So if we don't want to use all of our money to try to take down all of those properties, because I think it's over 50, we could buy as we go along, buy one at a time, couple every year, and eventually we could get to acquiring the majority of the properties. But it is something that we certainly need to address if we're planning on cleaning up the entire area.
Can I just say something as well? Can you correct me as well? With the Birchwood property, aren't they individually owned by individual owners? Is that the issue with that?
You're correct. They're
Okay.
individually owned.
Okay.
You may have a property owner who may have 6 units. You may have a property owner only own 2 units. So it varies.
And I think when we dealt with this with Christian Court, we actually tried to do code enforcement. That didn't work well. We tried to do all types of things to acquire. Fred exhausted most of his options. We would go to court. By the time we get to court, the owner would give it to someone else, so we had to start the process over. And I think I don't know if Fred is here, he can correct me, but Birchwood got to be so expensive because once the city did an appraisal, we had to give everybody the same price. And we had some triplexes where one unit was burnt, but we had to pay that guy, this lady, the same amount that we paid everybody else. I think the expense got about $4 million because we couldn't negotiate like a private person would go and knock on the door and say, hey, your property is deplorable, it's in bad shape. The guy down the road has this in pristine condition. We had to give everybody the same amount, and I think it was like $100,000+ for each unit, and so it got kind of expensive. Then of course, what do you do with the residents that are living there? So you have 50 people that live there. And we talked about on Magnolia Street, and we still get beat up about that, about, eliminating affordability of living in Leesburg. So you get rid of 50 families that are paying $600-700 a month. Then you say, now you go find a place to live in the lakefront city, and they find it very hard to do. So I don't know if Ken could talk about his efforts at trying to find other place to live. And of course, the city gets beat up about we kicking people out and they have nowhere to go. They're on fixed incomes. So I think if we're going to go that route, we have to get a plan
Right.
because you're going to have 50 families that are going to look at us and say, 20 of them are going to say, I can't find anywhere to go. And against, my better wish, I think the city shouldn't get into the whole thing of we're going to help find you somewhere, and then we're going to supplement you to live here until you find. So I think that becomes even more problematic. So that would be my only concern with Birchwood. Not that we shouldn't get a try, but I think that makes the price go really high.
You're correct, Mayor. Absolutely. It's almost a tough position that we're in because they know that the cities, when we acquire property, we're not just going to kick them out. Although we're only obligated to give them, proper notice, but they anticipate or at least expect that the city will find them a place to go, as well as helping them to pay their deposit. So it's tough.
Yeah, without getting bogged down on Birchwood, I mean, Al and I have talked about it. I've been in discussions on it. I guess my question, a couple of questions. One is it a landlord problem, a tenant problem? And where I'm going with this question is, what are we really solving by buying those apartments? I mean, if the tenants are the problem, we're going to go somewhere else. I don't know. I think you know where I'm trying to go with this. I don't know what the underlying real issue is with Birchwood. I mean, I do. I know it's drugs and crime and all
It's
that.
all of above. You hit it.
But I think you see my point.
And if you wanted to live in that community in close proximity to Birchwood, not in Birchwood, but in close proximity, you're going to be faced with drug activity, some of those unwanted illegal things that are happening right there in real time in that subdivision. So how do you get rid of it? How do you stop it from happening?
Yeah, and I guess that's my whole point of my question. Is it project, if we tackle this project per se, my fear is it's just going to be another property nearby. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to learn with my question too.
Well, I personally used to own 3. My church owned 3 duplexes in Birchwood, and it was very difficult to maintain tenants because what would happen is, you try to put a tenant there, and what's going on in the neighborhood, the tenant ends up leaving because they don't want to deal with it. And so if I got a good landlord beside me, he may have great tenants. May have a landlord that lives out of state, and he don't care as long as he gets his rent once a month. So your good tenant says, I'm gone. Of course, you got a mortgage with the bank, so you're trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage when I can't keep steady tenants. So, and that was the same problem with Christian Quarter. It was 9-10 different owners, and they all had different philosophies on what a good tenant was and how to maintain properly a safe, clean environment. And I think that's really the problem that we face in Birchwood.
I had a question on Thomas Avenue. Who's the current owner of that property? And,
It's owned by a trust.
okay, where I'm going with that question is there's a fertilizer plant near there. I don't know if it's the same
It's
property.
in that same parcel.
And it's
They
pub-
own
it's-
all of that.
It's public records. This is, it's at the state level, but that is a highly contaminated site environmentally. I believe it's a Superfund site.
Actually, they cleaned it up.
Okay. I just want to be sure that we all know about that. Okay, I figured
Yeah.
you knew more than I did. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd like to make a comment for the record. I would just like to see the resources being used elsewhere outside of Birchwood at this moment. I think you said it well. That would be like another phase 2 or phase 3 project. I would just like to see the resources being used elsewhere in the Carver Heights area. Me personally.
So, did you have something, Commissioner Burr?
Yeah, when we've been talking about Birchwood for a long time, and I don't think Birchwood is getting better. I think it is a major problem we have, and we need to address it. And how we do that is, it's a tough road. I understand that, but it is not a section of Leesburg that anybody likes. And I think we've got an excellent recreation facility on both sides of it. By cleaning it up, we can link those things together to further provide better recreational opportunities for kids, and thereby increasing the overall value of the community. I think it needs to not just be a down the road thing.
It needs to
I
be
think we
addressed.
need to.
What do you suggest that we do?
I don't have a suggestion as far as, but I think we need to start exploring how we can go about. I know we've looked at it before, or not we as in me, but the commission has talked about it before. But acquiring the property, I don't know the process, but it's not getting better. It's only getting worse.
So Ken, on that, have we had any contact with the property owners of Birchwood lately? I know years ago we had multiple meetings with the property owners. Have we did anything lately, or we just kind of?
No, we haven't had any interaction with property owners lately. But we have done some research, and we've identified every property owner within the complex. And we did an assessment of the value for each property. And it is up in the millions just on the assessed value, not what the market would bear if we decided to purchase, which would be somewhat different. But so we do have an idea of what it would cost us, but we haven't approached the property owners.
So what about like code enforcement? Because I mean, for instance, the one that went up for tax deed, it had $169,000 code enforcement tally running. That would have
Right.
been something the city could have grabbed, and that could have been one either for demo or just board up and prepare. If we were gonna go to purchase, that's one that would have been off that $1 million assessment fee that you had. So I think, if we're gonna look harder at Birchwood, I think those are the type things we need to put in place. Who are the owners? Are they even willing to fix up their property to screen their tenants? Assistant would get a screening process, make sure police, code enforcement are visiting frequently to make sure that it is maintained in a safe environment. And if we exhaust those options, I think we go to the next phase. What do we do next?
Well, our code enforcement department, because I want to say this publicly, they're not out there because we want to acquire the property. They're out there because they've gotten phone calls and people have been complaining. And so I don't really want to tie the code enforcement with our potential acquisition down the road. But I do know that code enforcement has been out there for quite some time, making sure that they meet the minimum housing code. And if they don't, they certainly are sending the property owners letters.
Yeah, because I agree, absolutely. And part of addressing it is if code enforcement addresses it and they clean it up and it's a nice neighborhood with good tenants, then there would be no reason to acquire it, and that would be a whole lot better and save us a lot of money. And I don't know if also maybe this is a possible place we can use that. We have the ordinance for the board that allows them to look at like if there's a pattern of certain types of crimes in an area. I don't know, Mayor, if you remember what that board was called, or Fred.
The nuisance ordinance?
The nuisance board, which I don't think we've ever used, but given what I've heard about the neighborhood, when people say it might come into play there, if you have repeat crimes, then it's another tool for cleaning up the neighborhood as opposed to just trying to buy it all. But I agree with Commissioner Burry that this is something we gotta figure it out. And it's a big enough piece of property that, if the end solution is we just can't work with the property owners, we can't get it cleaned up, and we had to acquire it, I would think that you could do some sort of combination and housing there, right? Like it doesn't have to be, because if you did a multifamily unit that was affordable somewhere in between our current apartments and home ownership, like we've talked about transition. So,
Right.
working people up through the different types of housing, that you could build that on there and then still have some room for recreation. And I mean, it'd be a great place for housing given the proximity to all the recreation.
Yeah, there are some infrastructure improvements that are needed in there. The roadway probably haven't been improved in over decades. But the properties themselves, they can be rehabbed. So if we acquired some of those properties, there was no need to tear them down. We could rehab them and as you said, bring tenants back in or new tenants in there to keep that property as residential, but it'll be much cleaner than it is today.
We had a discussion.
Good idea.
Al has something.
On this topic, I think we're in a difficult conversation for two reasons. One, I think as a group, we haven't done a whole lot of planning with the Carver Heights CRA, only because the CRA until the last couple of years hasn't generated a good increment. The mayor pointed that out in our budget workshops, which was pretty much the precipitous for this meeting. Now that thing is generating a couple hundred grand steadily, that hasn't happened for the past fiscal year. So holy cow, now we have money. What do we do with it? One, and these are kind of separate. Two, the Birchwood question. I think the Birchwood question is difficult. Just as a management approach, and my personal opinion, not the opinion of the group, and I've talked to the mayor at different times and a couple members of the board a couple different times and different community members. The Birchwood problem, the Birchwood question is a difficult problem, a difficult one to solve because of the blight, because of the crime, because of the relocation. I would remind this body that we've done it twice since I've been here on smaller levels. Venetian Isles was an issue to relocate folks. We did, and I think we had a couple of stragglers at the end that were problematic, but we did solve that one. And the second one is the Magnolia area. That one was actually a smaller relocation than the Venetian Isles, but actually a little more difficult too. To that extent, we're still in the litigation for the right of eminent domain condemnation issues. So that one got a little bit touchier and was smaller. So from those two experiences, I know the relocation issue is difficult. So that makes Birchwood kind of the Mount Everest of the relocation efforts. But we've got the experience to do it, so that's a good thing. I would also encourage the body to think about that question because even though you can mention the numbers and we've done the preliminary work, I would encourage your input to give us at least direction to start peeling initial layers of that onion back. And if it gets too ugly, we can slap them closed pretty quick. But the other issue that's sitting out there that is new, that we haven't had before, is the American Reinvestment Act monies. Remember, those Reinvestment Act monies are there to, one of the number one priorities is to affect blighted areas and those who have been impacted the most by COVID, and also use those funds in census tract areas that have a high rate of poverty. So obviously, on those two criteria, tackling the Birchwood money is going to open, or tackling the Birchwood question is open now to monies that we've never had available before. So before us is going to be $10 million. Now, I'm not saying you spend all of the recovery monies on that question, but if you got, sorry, Commissioner Peterson, if you got to spend a little more and help grease the skids to make it easier for people to relocate, Uncle Sam does have his checkbook open to the tune of about $10 million. Again, I'm not saying all of that, but I'm saying there are funds there that were never there before. That's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to affect where that program's supposed to affect. So that at least gives us another avenue. And maybe it's not CRA money, or maybe it's a mix thereof. But I think there's at least, it's probably time to peel back the layers a little bit. Maybe talk to those folks, maybe more directly start probing and contacting. Is there interest to sell? Those type of things. And then, so I think it kind of comes in 3 steps, kind of put on the numbers, how much is it going to cost? Acquisition, relocation, and then a redevelopment number. So I think there's 3 big estimates that go in that project. What's that going to be? My guess, not to blow your doors off, is $5 to $7 million for those 3 numbers, and then funded accordingly. But as we look on these tasks that we want to do in Carver Heights, I would encourage, my personal opinion, to not overlook the Birchwood one, and it's the toughest one on the board. And I also think too, but there's also another equation that goes in there, the political issues that are associated with what's the best way to spend that CRA money. Is it best to spend it in infrastructure, acquisition of blight, and then building streets and roads and infrastructure, or is it best to directly build housing and those type of things? So all those questions need to get talked about. The Birchwood, I know, is a hard one. I would encourage you to, at least from this evening, say, hey, maybe start peeling the layers back.
Thanks, Al. I appreciate that. But like I aforementioned, I live in this community, and I know that I'm impacted firsthand. I know what I see driving home every day, waking up every morning, living in the community, speaking with the residents, actually living in the CRA community, Carver Heights. And personally, I would like to see the money redirected elsewhere in other parts of that, the Carver Heights CRA.
My question is, with all these big dollars, we talked about code enforcement. Don't we have, I thought I was privy to a discussion, we have the right to send in the building department to inspect homes to be sure they are adequate? I know it's not cut and dry, but you see, I think you know where I'm going with all this. I want to go down the path of law enforcement, building department, code enforcement, because I'm not sure we're going to solve the problem. I started this whole conversation with, are these going to go 3 blocks down the road? That's my biggest concern, and I'm not negative. I fully support spending money in Carver Heights and continuing it in the right direction. I don't want to be misunderstood, but these are big numbers, and I just want to be sure we've exhausted all remedies.
So the 3 remedy, or at least 2 that I hook my ears into, minimum inspection. That's the first one. You said building department. My head went to minimum inspection. Minimum inspection is going to be required from a tenant. So you're going to have to be invited onto the property to go through and inspect the home, and then the licensed building inspector, or it would probably be the inspector, not the official, but maybe Ann would go out there. And then they would then put the list together of all the infractions of the minimum issues, active fire detectors or smoke detectors, is the electrical meeting code, and these type of things, water, plumbing, those type, and then those minimum life safety inspections. But you got to be invited on, and so owner of the property or tenant has to invite the public official in there. Second, the code enforcement issue, that really unfortunately does go back to the kind of the cat and mouse game. Is, okay, you issue the notice, it may get fixed. If it doesn't get fixed, then we're in lien land, and you stay in lien land, and you hit, and the lien number goes up until we're able to force a change. So I don't think all remedies have been exercised in this question, but I'm not very optimistic that that's going to get it.
Can law enforcement be more aggressive? Or are you going to say they've been aggressive enough?
I'm going to say they've been aggressive enough within reason.
That's what I thought you would say.
Within reason.
I don't know.
I just want to add.
Go ahead, Jim.
I just want to add one thing to that, Mike, is that, yes, generally they have to be invited to go in to inspect the house, but they are allowed to see anything exterior that obviously would be minimum housing violations from right-of-ways, or if they're invited by the neighbor to go on their property and look in their backyard and that kind of stuff. So you don't always have to be invited. You have to be invited to go inside the house, but you could observe exterior stuff as long as it's from an area you're allowed to be on.
And I appreciate that. And I just kind of whispered to Ken, educate the tenants on this, and maybe they'll invite us in.
Mr. Connors, you got anything on this?
I'd like to say something. The Birchwoods, I'm going to talk about that first, is that by dealing with Birchwood, we only going to value Leesburg, the city. You got the gym on one end, the softball on the other end, and that's in the middle. And we know Birchwood is a bad place, as we could say, but it's a part of Leesburg. So when something happened in Carver Heights or Birchwood, it's still Leesburg. It's just like where we putting the pool at now. We moved those tenants. I think you maybe have one or two there, but they was done. But it's for the pool, so, I mean, in Birchwood, something needs to be done because we got two properties for the city between the softball and the gym. So by just saying, you know, leaving it, we just leaving a sore that's gonna get worse. So we really need to do something about it.
So I guess I'm hearing Al, you can peel off the onion a little bit. And I do like what Commissioner Roebuck said, though. You know, if you look at the map, if you have access to the map, even if you repurpose some of the property where we go closer to, because no matter what, you still got residents that are on Susan Street. So you're not going to eliminate all the residents. You got single-family homes. So even if we displaced or remodeled, rebuilt, even we did something nicer, we still could keep people close, because people do still want to live close to baseball, the middle school. So I think we could do something to repurpose. There may be some tenants who want to stay in that neighborhood, who may pass a background screen, who may pass the requirements that the city of Leesburg may require them to live in a community that we are redeveloping. So, you know, I'm good with pulling the onion back, but I want to be open-minded to say, hey, we still have people who live there, who've called this area home, been there for a long time, who are good taxpayer residents of our city. So I think a multi-use, mixed-use development connecting the recreation amenities that's already there could create a good opportunity for Leesburg. So hopefully we'll look at those options when we move forward. Any other comments on that, Birchwood? All right, Ken.
Mayor, Al has on his desk right now a contract from a property owner that's adjacent, it's a 1 acre parcel adjacent to the resource center that the previous owner, or she passed away, and her daughter, who lives out west, has given Al a contract asking the city would they purchase. So that is another one that I don't have on the list, but we have gone out, we've done a review of it, and it would probably be, not probably, but it would be most fitted to as a multifamily development adjacent to the resource center.
How big a piece of property is it, Ken?
It's 1 acre.
Is there a house on it now?
It's a house on it, but we would probably have to either consider demo, or it would cost quite a bit to rehab it for multifamily.
So if we bought it, and who would develop it? We would sell it, or we would develop it ourselves?
I would prefer that we work with a developer to develop it. We own the land, and
that one I think is just a tough one. So just to picture, it's kind of the eye of the hurricane. You've got the resource center all around that property, and then right in the middle is that parcel. So that was, so back to the Christian Court days, the Christian Court went all the way around that house, and that parcel was left in the middle. I think it's one that can probably go either way. The offer is reasonable in market. It was like 175.
190.
It was 190 was what they were offering. I haven't done the check to see if that's a reasonable comp or not. It's probably pretty close is my knee-jerk reaction. So then it becomes, what do you want to do with it? Is anybody living in there right now?
No.
So it's empty because they passed away?
Yeah.
So then it probably at this stage it would be one, it's in the center, nothing's really gonna happen there. So it'd probably be one that you take and you put in the hopper, and so you join that property so you don't have that issue in the future.
I mean, I would, of course, want to get an appraisal first. You know, happy to pay for that. City of Leesburg should be happy to pay, make sure we're not paying too much. And also, I would be concerned about being so close to the resource center that we maintain ownership of whatever we do. Last thing I want to develop it to be beside the resource center, city-owned building, and they're not taking care of the property. So I think it's something we we should have because it's so close to the resource center, but I think we should, whatever we do, we maintain ownership of the
And I
property.
think that's kind of where you go. And so, Commissioner Cannell, we don't have a good answer what you do with it right today. But tomorrow, because of the way that property lays out, it's a piece that's going to be useful in the future. And if we can pick it up for a fair market value price now, it's in the hopper, and then it's just in the resources, because if we develop the rest of that parcel later, you know and I know that centerpiece is going to be a development issue.
Yeah, I mean, that one to me, especially, you know, if you end up figuring out Birchwood and you need to relocate, like, I think for a private developer, that location for some sort of multifamily project would be pretty attractive because you've got a decent amount of industrial companies with jobs out there. The proximity to the villages has good access to that. So I mean, it's a good spot, better than some of the others, I think, for like an actual private market developer to come in that, you know, would work with us, obviously, since we own the property.
Right.
And like you said, that might be, you know, if you decide the way that we've located the resource center in that part, not saying you would do this, but if you would decide, hey, let's sell off the north half of the resource, I'm gonna call it the resource center I can't remember, it's Red Road, north-south, and then it's what's
Pruitt.
Is it
Pruitt
Pruitt? Is
and
that the south?
Schoolview.
I thought, or is that the one?
School views are south.
Okay, so
Schoolview.
Pruitt, so that block, it's like, okay, so if you're gonna sell off that, you would want that eye. And selling off all of that, you're going to get back. Now, of course, this doesn't account for getting back money for Christian Court. So that's done. But
get
that
that.
served its purpose,
Right.
and that removed blight,
Right.
and that was the intent of doing that.
Right.
And so I think and I hate to come up before the body and say, hey, we need 200 grand, and I don't know what to do with it. But that's just, that parcel is just, we're going to need it.
You're gonna
And
need
at the
that one.
mayor's point, you know, we could always do a land lease for the property for multifamily development.
Yeah, we need it.
So that would, you know, bring revenue too as well. Mayor, I know we're got to close, but there are some other items that were on there, the small business assistance plan. I hope you all had an opportunity to review it, but those particular activities were geared toward jump-starting commercial development within the community. Oftentimes, there's a problem with having capital when you're a small business, paying rent. So some of our programs, if we're able to set aside dollars for commercial development, we would set aside funding for interior renovations of buildings, exterior renovation of buildings. We would do facade improvements. We would do a neighborhood amenities incentive program, and we'd also provide, as I said earlier, jumpstart capital to buy equipment to operate a business within the Carver Heights community.
Okay, Ken, real quick, because we trying to go too fast. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so I like the low-lying fruit. So what can we possibly do to make a comment? I see you have the cul-de-sac on, I think it's Bradford, where it says the dangerous curve, going down Beecher and Bradford. Is that something the community is asking for, law enforcement for safety purposes? I think that's on number...
Yeah, that is the Beecher Street, Bradford. Beecher Street going south curves around to Bradford right now. It's sort of like a blind corner. We've had some issues with that in the past. Throughout the last 10 years, when we've had neighborhood meetings, someone has always brought up about, you know, why don't we get rid of that curve? Why don't we get rid of that problem? And so now we're at a point where it's a possibility that we can do it. So it is not Ken's idea, it's been the community who has brought it up about why don't we get rid of that blind curve. And the positive part of that is that the city owns the portion that is on the west side and the east side of Beecher Street.
So cost, and I like things we can accomplish that won't cost us. a lot of money. So you're saying close Bradford Street and make that a cul-de-sac? Is that what the plan would be?
Yeah, we would close Bradford Street from Beecher all the way to McCormick. But we would ensure that those property owners who are on Beecher, they have access on Beecher. And the property owners on McCormick has access onto McCormick. They just would no longer have access onto Bradford Avenue.
Okay. So the two houses,
Yeah, it's two houses essentially.
I own
But-
one, that's why I'm asking about the one that I own. So you would just keep Bradford as like a road?
Actually, it would be, no, we would either pull up the asphalt and continue the grass part.
Okay.
Because the idea of the community is to create this extravaganza at the park where on, every Saturday, you can come out and there is an activity. You can sell your wares. So if we had Bradford connecting to the park, that could be another a space rather to provide that activity,
Okay.
that Saturday day activity.
Because the house on 801 McCormick, it actually comes off of Bradford. That's where the driveway.
Yeah, it's really, the property that's on McCormick, which is yours, it is real tight.
Okay,
But
don't talk about my property.
yeah, we could make it work though.
Okay, and Pastor Middleton owns the one on.
On Beecher,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And, and she has access now on Beecher.
Okay.
So I have a quick question. So coming down Beecher, you would close off the road and make it a cul-de-sac there? And then would Bradford be open from McCormick Way? Just trying to get clarity and understanding.
No, Bradford would be open going east. The east side of Bradford, the east side of McCormick rather.
McCormick.
But from McCormick going west to Beecher, that is totally closed. It's no longer a road. We would pull up the asphalt and it would be just grass.
So Ken, tonight, what are you asking us for we like it, priority, bring us back some numbers? What are you asking for us tonight?
Yes, Mayor. First, I certainly would like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or bring you more. And the second item is if you do like it, we can bring back some numbers attached to all of these programs, all of these projects. And as we talked in previous meetings, we don't have the money to cash right now to go out and acquire all these properties. We would have to go out and borrow against our TIF, our tax increment financing. So our next meeting, if you all agree, we would need to come back to you with how much all this is going to cost and ask you to go forth with seeking money to leverage our Carver Heights funding.
Okay. All right. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
We can always say yeah, no. And I know you had the lots we just purchased. You had the housing, that the drawings.
Yes, sir. There's a drawing on it. It's a layout of the property. The house is called the Clinton, and the developer himself, the property we just acquired, or we're acquiring from the Elks Lodge, that developer has agreed to build 2 houses there on his dime if we agree to it. So it doesn't cost us anything to allow him to build 2 single-family homes on the property.
So you're gonna bring more detail about cost and all that to the next meeting on that? Is everybody okay with looking at that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great job.
Okay.
And just ask on the 2 lots, the lots, once he sell the houses, that he gives something back to the city to help pay off this note if we borrow some money. So
I'll
that's-
find out.
All right. All right. Okay, Ms. Andy, roll call, please. Thanks, Mr. Thomas and Al, thank you. Don't forget about Birchwood too, Ken.
Commissioner Peterson?
So he closed up with really my comments. As I read the packet for tonight, My comments went, or my thoughts went directly to, just prioritizing the items and putting a dollar amount, or at least an estimated dollar amount by them. That's all I have.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Burry,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Connell,
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Jasper,
I have nothing. I just want to say thanks to Ken and Al for a great job. Thank you.
Commissioner Connor,
Nothing tonight.
Chairperson Christian.
I just want to thank again Al and Ken and hopefully Cliff for working to clean up some of that property on Chester. So we'll be saying kudos real soon, Cliff, right? Thank you. That's all I have tonight. Motion to adjourn. Everybody need a break or Jay need a break?
Yes, sir, I need to change name tags.
Yes. Drinking that water, man.
Al don't even give us no water.
I just want the water, Andy. Not tonight. Jay said, yeah. I know. Look, now we're gonna budget cut, right? Hey, she was trying to see how y'all was gonna act the first meeting, whether y'all got water or not. Right, see, all right, y'all don't have any money. y'all don't have enough money yet. Y'all trying to borrow money. We gotta wait and see what y'all gonna do. You gotta be careful, hit that chair. So why y'all gotta wait till August 20th? They coming now. I think look, the governor said come get.
show up. No, we're fine. We're good. Thank you, sir. Yeah, call Jay. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the Leesburg City Commission meeting to order. We've already had our invocation and our prayer. If you would return to your seats, please. We have no presentations. Tab 4 is our public comment. This section reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, please. While we're here, if you can just not talk so we can hear you, you can hear us when you get to the podium, please. Are there any public comments? Yes, ma'am. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Tony Stokes Marshall. I live at 1207 South 8th Street in Leesburg.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. As I said, my name is Tony Stokes Marshall. I own a small business in downtown Leesburg called Uncommon on 6th. Last week, I sent a letter to each of you and our city manager about serious concerns I have regarding many of the vacant properties in the Central Business District. These properties not only need facade work, but many of them have a history of serious issues internally and are most likely in violation of city, state, and federal building, accessibility, and health and safety codes. I want to take this opportunity to suggest that each of you apprise yourselves of the history of the serious issues with these properties, and that each of you schedule a tour of the properties with the appropriate property managers so that you can see for yourself what a threat they are, not only to public health and safety, but to future growth opportunities that our downtown area so desperately needs. The condition of the buildings and the terms of the lease agreements are monumental deterrents for prospective small business owners. I know what I spent on my lease and my building in order to make it suitable for my small business. And my building was in good shape, and my property owner was supportive and reasonable when it came to leasing terms. This is a critical turning point in downtown Leesburg. And if we do not make investments in the Central Business District to attract a good mix of retail, services, recreation, and dining, folks will no longer come downtown, and the existing businesses who are still struggling after COVID will cease to exist. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Stephanie Dukes. I live in unincorporated Lake County. I ran for office to represent this area at the House of Representatives, District 32, and have submitted to run again. I am here to praise you and thank you for taking up the issue, because one of my passions is affordable workforce housing, as well as, like the lady, business lady before me said, for us to have businesses that our citizens in this area can support and receive quality products, as well as our tourist industry. I am committed to working for an area that is livable for not only tourists, but for the residents who live in this area. I thank you, and I look forward to talking and working with each of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments tonight, tab 5 is our consent agenda. Where routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the items from the consent agenda, vote on remaining items with one roll call vote, and discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items tonight the commission would like to pull? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to proper second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Public hearings is tab 6, the second reading. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce as read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, vacating approximately 0.73 acres of right-of-way and retaining a utility and a public ingress and egress easement for property generally located south of Dixie Avenue and east of Lake Street, as recorded in Plat Book 1, page 69, Public Records of Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Move to proper second. Any discussion from the commission? Yes, sir.
Members of the commission and mayor. Okay, we have just a, I don't know, I'm struggling with this. I'll start with the short version. We're going to recommend to you tonight to table this indefinitely. And that's not a bad thing, but here's the reason. So once upon a time when the Venetian Isles folks came to the city to put the Venetian Isles property into a PUD, and roughly that property is Lake Street to Lakeport Squares property, Dixie to Malathon Circle residential property. There was numbers of discussions amongst the PUD, and when the PUD came before this body, the concept that was ultimately approved was a phased approach. The first phase was the development and construction of the hotel, which almost is nearing completion and issuance of C. Phase 2 then began commercial pads and the other site development stuff. This stuff was the stuff that the residents who lived on Malathon Circle were concerned about. Building us a road, building us a buffer that protect us from the new commercial development. And that would commence in phase 2, but no later than 6 months after phase 1 ends. So the definition when phase 1 ends is when the CO is issued for the hotel. So whether phase 2 is started or not, the public improvements that the Malathon Court folks wanted needs to be done 6 months after the CO is issued. No later than that. In that discussion, the Malathon Court folks wanted Malathon Court to remain a private street. Right now, it's a private street, and it basically goes off the south side of Lake Street and then over and serves about the 5 or 7 houses along the lakefront in that area. So they want that to remain private. But they also worked a deal, which was incorporated in the PUD, was that the developer of Venetian Isles would build that road, as I previously said. So, at the last meeting, you all vacated the old right-of-way, or the old city property, we called it the H. That H squarely lied in the PUD, which was the retention area. So you didn't vacate anything that's ever going to be used, at least at this stage. The L piece is what we were left with, which is the one I recommended for you to table tonight. So I do think eventually you need to vacate that L piece. The ordinance that was before you is pretty good. I would probably put one word in section 1 that matches the title. But I think it's prudent not to vacate it yet. And basically what we're doing is we're just keeping the developer's feet to the fire to make sure that he develops this road. And should he not, I'm not saying that we're going to do this, but should something fall through the cracks, should we get into issues with the developer, should this road not be built, it will probably ultimately fall on us to build it, and we're going to need property to do so. So my recommendation to you is don't give this L away until we're assured that that road's going to be built. If the developer needs some release to work in our property while they're building the road, I'm happy to provide that. I think Fred could probably write up the correct legal release. I'm sure the road will get built, but I just think it's prudent not to release this until that's done. So I want to ask you, I would ask you to table it to a date certain so we don't have to re-advertise, but I don't know what that date is. So I'm just going to say formally table it. That will just only trigger us to have to advertise when the second reading in. Is that correct, Fred? So we don't have to start from scratch. So just table it, and then we'll advertise when the second reading on this is, and that'll prevent the whole process from starting again.
Okay.
So my recommendation is to table it for those reasons.
Motion to table?
Move to table.
Second.
Second.
Moving properly. Second to table this to indefinitely. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6A2, second reading of an ordinance. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 160 plus minus acres from PUD Planned Unit Development to PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for mixed-use development for property generally located west of County Road 33 and south of Florida's Turnpike, as legally described in Sections 33 and 34, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and properly second. Discussion from the commission?
Did we have any adjacent property owners file?
Not that I know of. If Dan, help me out here, Dan. I think we're okay. Yeah, Dan's nodding yes, so no, we didn't get any feedback on property owners from this one.
Well, we got one disapproval from Eric Poole. It's a 5 acre and above. No one in the area wants to see a subdivision, and had one approval, public comment.
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. It did go through the Planning Commission with an approval recommendation. There were a couple of nearby adjacent homeowners that that would rather see something else. Staff did work with one of the homeowners, or one of the property owners to the north, in regard to, they did not want the fence that we had put in. They would prefer to just have a buffer, and we worked that out. I don't know if there's anyone here tonight, but Planning Commission and staff are still recommending approval.
Okay. Any public comment? Any other commission comment? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6A3 is also a second reading. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
Introduced and read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, establishing the Village Community Development District Number 14 pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes, providing for authority and power of the district, providing for the Board of Supervisors of the district, providing for the district budget, providing for functions of the district, providing for miscellaneous provisions, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moving probably second. Any commission discussion? Any public comment? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6B1 is a first reading. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce, has to be read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, granting to the Wildwood Utility Dependent District its successors and assigns a non-exclusive potable water and wastewater and sewer utility franchise for a period of 30 years to construct, own, operate, and maintain certain services and facilities to serve areas within and adjacent to the village's age-restricted development, setting forth the terms and conditions under which such franchisee shall operate, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date.
This item will lay over. Any comments from the commission? Al, anything? You good? Okay, this item will lay over. Now we go to our non-routine items. It's a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce and read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the City Commission to increase rates to the city's health insurance programs, Florida Blue, Blue Options, and Blue Care plans, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any commission discussion?
Do you want any, let me just I'll give you a little bit of discussion. The next 3 items we have on the agenda are the significant ones to the fiscal year 22 planning, and it goes back to formalizing the conversation that we had in the budget workshop. The budget workshop conversation with the major concern essentially in the entire budget was the status of the healthcare fund. And the status of the healthcare fund is it's basically depleted, and staff had 3 recommendations for you to address that. And we agendized these, I don't know if I'll say in order of importance or significant, but at least somewhat, with the hardest decisions kind of being pushed in order of the agenda. So, and those being, we need to change the rates. Number two, you need to shift money around so that we can pay the bills. And then third was a modification of a benefit to employees hired prior to October 1, 2008. So the matter that's before you now, which is the resolution authorizing the rate change. We have not in the past brought a resolution to establish a change in rates. Rates are the offering of the city's program. The city has two offerings. We offer a PPO health insurance program and an HMO program through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then the rates are made by the city's team and our insurance consultant, and we charge ourselves we develop our own rate structure as we're self-insured, and based on whether you're an employee, how you participate in the plan on four stages: an employee-only plan, an employee and a child plan, an employee and a spouse plan, and a family plan. So this resolution changes those rates. The reason that we're doing this by resolution this year, the first time we've done that, is because this is the first time we've raised rates on health insurance for our employees and retirees in a number of years, and specifically the CBAs that are now in existence, where will be ending year 2, required a 30-day notice to the bargaining unit that the rates will change prior to the effective date. So the effective date is October 1. September 1 would be the 30-day notice. This resolution is obviously passed. If you pass it, is passed significantly outside that 30-day window, and should you pass it, we'll send formal notice that we met the requirement of the CBA. So that's the reason for it being on the agenda. In the past, we recommended it. You kind of waved your wand in a workshop session and we dealt as this as an administrative matter. The reason for the change. Now, the change. The change is acute in that it addresses a shift in the rates to shift the costs where our exposures are being felt. And our exposures are being felt either in a retiree category, which we'll address later, or a dependent care coverage category. And the recommendation is to move forward so that the bulk of the user, which is the employee only, isn't affected by the increase in the claims. So our recommendation to you is to increase the rates accordingly. And I'll give you the number, the current number, and then the proposed number for the two plans. And I'm going to do it in sequential order, always going employee, child, spouse, family coverages. Currently, if you participate in the HMO program, the employee total cost is $649.89 a month. Child, $1,131.83 a month. Spouse, $1,166.98 a month. Family coverage, $1,519.58 a month. Those rates are being proposed to increase to $784.41, $1,143.04, $1,179.02, $1,535.78, respectively. The increase to the employee for employee only in the HMO plan to the employee only is $0. The city absorbs a $134.50 a month increase per month per employee. That is already in your proposed fiscal year 22 budget. For the employee, child, spouse, family, the increase is $11.21, $12.04, and $16.20 a month. If you participate in the PPO plan, the rate changes from $728.39 to $871.85, $1,216.33 to $1,230.04, $1,249.98 to $1,265.02, and the family plan $1,602.57 to $1,621.77 a month. Those changes respectively are $142.46 for the city on employee only, and the employee is $0. On the increases for the remainder, $0 to the city, child, spouse, family, $13.71, $15.04, and $19.02. Those are for full-time employees. The other change in this plan will also take away the retiree discount. We have a retiree discount where those rates that I just mentioned for the employee, child, spouse, and family plan are decreased by approximately 20%. It varies over which program you're in. While this 65 and older will still receive the $400 a month stipend, will still receive the offering of the coverage, the discount that's on top of that will go away. So they will, if they're on the employee-only plan, for example, their increase would be in the neighborhood of $280. That would be for a retired employee who qualifies for Medicare who is over 65. So passing this resolution makes those changes.
Thank you, sir. Any commissioners, any comments?
I do have.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. One concern, Al, when is it absolutely terrifically important we would need to pass this?
I think you need to pass it as soon as possible because that gives us plenty of time to make the requirement and it gives plenty of notice to the employees and affected retirees. Your drop dead date to pass it would be the second meeting in August.
Okay. The reason I ask is the 111 employees, I mean, obviously it's going to affect the employees, the existing employees by these rate hikes, which I don't think is excessive by no means. But the 111 that are in the plan, I would like for them to be notified of this change and afford them the opportunity to come speak to us before we pass this. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, because the number 111 is total retirees. The ones that need to be notified pursuant to your request are the 65 and older, and that number is 65.
Okay.
So it's 65 of the 111.
Okay. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think it would be courtesy to let them know, to have them afford an opportunity to speak to us before we made a $200-something a month change to their policy, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Any public comment?
Good evening, Brian Sapp, President, Local 2957, Professional Firefighters of Leesburg. I don't know if y'all are realizing this, but Mr. Minner just described to you what you're going to do. You're going to take away 20% discount of our retirees that have not had a COLA, and you're going to take away, and you're going to raise your rates. That disproportionately affects people that have already planned out their retirement. They already satisfied their commitment to the city. They're receiving a pension that's not changing, so fixed income, and now you're going to raise it, and you're going to take away their discount. Doesn't seem fair for someone who devoted their time to the city long enough to be a retiree here. So in fairness, I realize there's financial issues, but in fairness, someone that's already done that, you're not treating them very fairly, are you? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jose Aguilar. I started working with the city in 2001. In September 21, I'm going to be 20 years. I'm working most of my life for this beautiful city, and I met a lot of nice people working together. And like you guys, we're working for the wellness of the city of Leesburg. I'm so proud of being part of that team. But the last years, everything go up. Medical services are real expensive. And if we compare myself with the city got more money than me. I'm gonna have to receive the impact of that decision that you guys gonna make about American insurance. Something that I'm waiting all my life to receive, because it's a right that I have to receive that because I work for that. I stay in the city, that was one of the package that the city offered when I start. And I know times are rough, but I need to see in the future maybe we start working together for make better package of benefit for the people who work every day under storm, heat, rain, high voltage, and working together for everything be right. I'm so happy to be here because I see you guys take real hard decisions. So I expect the best of you and the best for the city of Leesburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any commission comment? You have a comment, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
My name's James Channels, and I did get an opportunity to speak to one of our retirees, and he's on Medicare. And he, so what's left after Medicare covers 80% is 20%. And the city's insurance is covering that 20%. But he's paying it at the same rate as a full-time employee, is what he had explained to me. So, I mean, he's on a fixed income now. He's past the age of 65. So if we're going to raise that, I think, like the first gentleman said, we're not being very kind to our retirees who gave their service to the city. I'm going to speak again on the next section, because the next section is going to affect me directly when I go to retire. So anyhow, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just
go ahead. Yes, sir.
I want to get clarification. I want to make sure I fully understand. We're talking about raising the rates of the existing employees, but we're also talking about tweaking what the retirees would pay. Would they still, under this proposal, well, I mean, they'd pay, we wouldn't supplement the difference, as you're saying, I think you said 20%, but would they still pay, they still get their $400 stipend under this?
Yes.
Okay.
So in that case, if that and this is specific for employees who've retired who are 65 and older. Those employees have two paths right now. One, they stay on the city's insurance plan and they receive $400. That $400 is a discount there. So I'll just keep the math easy. Say that the cost of insurance for employee only is $600, including the discount. They would pay $200 for that coverage, and they stay on the city's health plan. That's current one. The other option, at 65, everyone qualifies for Medicare. So that employee can have Medicare, receive $400, and then spend the $400 as they deem fit. Most of those employees, we assume, will use that as a supplement to get one of the plans that are plan, ABCD, that go along with Medicare. The change would be is if that employee stays on the plan, the city's plan, instead of $600 a month, that number would increase to $800 a month. And instead of an out-of-pocket cost of $200, their out-of-pocket would be $400 because they're still getting the $400. Flat out, the change is made to encourage the person who's 65 to go on to Medicare. So they're eligible, they can get that cost. There's no increase for their costs. In fact, their costs would go down because instead of paying the $200, depending on where they go with the supplemental. Okay, so I don't want to say anything definitive, but the decision was made, A, because that person can get covered through Medicare, and B, it reduces the city's exposure, and C, they keep the $400 a month stipend.
Okay, so, excuse me. So if you retire prior to 65, you would get the 400 and you would get the $600 rate. But once you hit 65, you still get the $400, but the city now is not going to supplement the difference of the 20%. So now your premium would be $850, $875. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, you threw out some numbers in there, so, and it's just a couple of things. Just for the sake of clarity, I would adjust it like this. Those who are already retired, no matter your age, the program does not change. Those who are already retired over age 65, the discount rate will go away. Those who are retired over 65 will still receive the $400 stipend. If you were already retired and you're over 65 and you're on the city's health care plan and you're an employee only, you're looking at about a $285 a month increase. Now, there's tons of variations in that, but that's the general statement.
Commissioners, any other comments? Al, just for the public to knowledge, did you go with the employees on, you're going to do that next resolution about the costs that the city is absorbing with the health care fund? Have you explained that all to the employees?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But we had 3 meetings with the employees last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We only met with the affected employees. So that was 166 of our current 500.
Okay.
I don't know what the participation, I don't know how many of the affected were at the meetings. We had pretty good turnouts. I would say most of the 166 were there, at least a good majority.
Yeah, something, Commissioner.
I mean, just that, I don't think this is unique to the city. I mean, the state of healthcare, frankly, it sucks. And I have, on the private side, a company, and we've got 300 plus employees on healthcare, and we're seeing, some years, 2 years ago, we saw a 30% increase. We've seen 10% increases, and it's just, I mean, it's not something the city's doing. It's to cause this to go up. It's the state of healthcare, and unfortunately, we're all in the same boat here. And we want to take care of people, but at the same time, can the city spend $1 million a year forever to do this benefit? I don't think they can. I don't think it's right to ask the taxpayers to come up with $1 million a year. I think that's where we came up with the compromise, which was the continue the $400 a month benefit, which is still a lot, but yeah. So I just say I can't speak for other commissioners, but I don't think anyone up here is happy about any of this. It's a bad situation, and we're just trying to make things work best we can.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay, roll call, Ms. Haney.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Burry?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Christian?
Yes. Item 6C2 is also a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce. Has to be read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the city manager to transfer funds up to $1,749,310 and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Yes, sir.
Okay, just a little explanation on this. Okay, so essentially on this, and pretty much everybody in the room who's an employee who went through to one of the meetings and the commission has heard this. This resolution asks you to shift about $1.75 million from different funds into the healthcare fund to stabilize it. What we have, and I'm just covering this side of the chart, and David, if you could get this up, great. If you can't, I won't talk too slow, but I talk a lot, so you might catch up to me. This graph shows, oh, there you go. This graph shows our healthcare claims expenses. So this is all in, which is a graph from fiscal year 12 to fiscal year 21. And essentially, we go from about $4 to $8 million over that course, with the lion's share of the increase happening the last several years. We have been slow. Now, we have increased rates, as you guys just did, but we've been slow to do that. And each year, what we do is when our claims outpace our revenue in, and the revenue in is that contribution level, that rate structure that we generate. There's a couple other revenue lines in there. When our claims outpace the revenue that we bring in, we go to the healthcare fund balance, and we take from the reserve, take from the pocket, take from the savings account, and we pay the bills. So this chart, clip a couple more. That's the increasing cost line. That chart, stop right there. That chart shows you from the same fiscal years, fiscal year 12, to the end of this fiscal year. The orange line represents how much money we had in the bank. The blue line represents where your reserve level is. So that's kind of the gas gauge. When your gas gets below the blue line, you got to get to the gas station. Your tank's running empty. That doesn't mean you're on empty, but it means you're about to run out of gas. That's the got to do something line. So essentially, the blue line needs to stay around $2 million, million and a half, or $1.5 million in the bank, and our fund has gone from a lowish, or $2 million to upwards of $4 million. And essentially, what has happened in the last few fiscal years is our claims continue to rise, and we continue to go to our bank account to pay the bill in lieu of asking for more contribution from ourselves or our employees. We've gone to our cash. So we're going to do that this year, and what the two bars at the end show is when we started this fiscal year of 21, back in October 1st of 2020, we had $2.1 million in the fund. So just about $500,000 over when the gas gauge reads empty. When we finish, and based on our projections, not including the insurance proceeds that we will receive for high claims, which if we want to talk about that, we can. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the next phase. We will be $1.2 million below our reserve requirement. So we'll have $300,000 left in our bank account, but that bank account needs to stay at around $2 million, and you can see for obvious, or $1.5 million, and for obvious reasons, because this is a volatile fund. You can a good year you may be in the black 100 or 250,000, but in a bad year you're going to be in the hole $1 million, $1.5 million. So that swing's not very good. So the recommendation is we got to finish the rest of the fiscal year. To do that, we need $1.2 million, but I'm asking you for an extra $500,000 to get up and to keep the fund in the $2 million versus the $1.5 million frame. So what this resolution does is it authorizes me at my discretion before the end of the fiscal year to shift money around so that we can cover and pay the bills. And how the recommendation is, and I'm not going to read the whole recommendation, it's in the package, but roughly it's to shift $1 million from the workers' comp fund. The workers' comp fund has, remember, everybody has the same requirements. You've got the gas gauge when it gets low. This $1 million will bring the workers' comp fund right to a little bit below the reserve requirement. Our reserve requirement, I will tell you, we like to keep a little more cushion there than GFOA or the other governing bodies or professional associations recommend. Mind you, we're not talking a lot. Okay, a couple $1,000. So it's not a significant difference, but a little bit. So $1 million, but we feel comfortable in the work comp fund that we can do that because we've had good experience there, knock on wood, and that fund will replenish itself, hopefully here by the end of the fiscal year, and we should be okay. The remaining $750,000 will come out of the general electric, wastewater, water, gas, solid waste, stormwater, building permits, fleet services, airport, and affordable housing funds in the proration to what their employees serve. So there's a formula based on how much we pay per employee, per fund. They will then kick in their proration. That will generate the other $750,000. We make the changes by the end of the fiscal year or during the course of the fiscal year. I won't go above it, And we should end the fund with about $2 million to start fiscal year '22 on October 1.
Thank you, sir. Any commission comment? Public comment? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6C3 is also a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce and ask to read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending resolutions 4152, 4846, 7537, 8286, 9785, and 10,232 pertaining to health insurance coverage for retired employees, limiting the $400 per month benefit to employees hired prior to October 1st, 2008, and retiring by April 1st, 2022, and providing an effective date.
Move to approve as amended in our handout.
Second?
Second.
City Manager Minner has some.
Okay,
adjustments.
so to set the stage, I'm sure you'll get a lot of public input on this topic, understandably so. You made a motion to start discussion on a recommendation. So out of the gate, I want to do two things. Let me set the stage for the public who hasn't heard the presentations. Most everybody, again, in the room has probably heard this, as well as the commission in two different forms. So I will be super brief. But I think it's important to set the stage for those folks who are watching who aren't as familiar with the situation as everybody in the room. Obviously, first, we see our claims rising, as one of the graphics showed. Second, you saw we had to shift around $1.75 million to pay the bills. So we did one action, which was to change the rates. The second action is to acutely address where we think our loss claims are. So our losses have significantly increased amongst our retired group, and there's several classes of retiree group, but our losses are specifically where we're seeing the most loss that we can stop or at least mitigate so we don't have the problem for the next literally 33 years is the early retiree class. We've got several classes, but the benefit that's on the table is that when you retire, you get $400 and the city's insurance, or your choice. If you retire early, that benefit forces you into potentially taking the city's insurance and the stipend to offset that, but then it exposes the cities to claim. As you see, our claims are increasing. There's a specific group that is causing that claim. And that claim over the last couple of years has been the 58 to 65 early retired group. And in 2021, of our $8.2 million in claims, 5 claims is 45% of that cost. And each one of those 5 claims is a person that's in that early retirement group. For fiscal year 22, that number has been reduced from 5 to 3. One, because of a disability. Now they are eligible for disability, which under the city policy, then our insurance stops. And then now they're eligible for Medicare, or Medicaid, and a death. Those are unfortunate circumstances. We still have to move forward, and we still have an exposure. So that exposure that the city has is an early retirement group where you have a secular cycle of when you get claims. Some years are good, some years are bad. And that goes for any age of the group. But this one is isolated, and this one is a 33-year exposure. So how do you have that exposure? Because there's an argument that if you pull this benefit away, you're still going to have high claims. There's truth to that. But it's about, in the insurance world and protecting the organization, you want to mitigate that exposure. You want to keep it to a minimum. So the first thing that we did was way back when, for different reasons, that special day, the 10/1/08, all those employees hired before and after, we made a new deal. All employees who are hired after 10/1, that's the fiscal year 2008, are no longer eligible for the retiree benefit. Mind you, retiree benefit and offering of health insurance are two different things, are no longer eligible for that benefit. So we've got a group now of 500 employees where there's 166 who are still eligible for that benefit. But that's an exposure of 33 years in that cycle. And how do you come up with that math? You go to the youngest person in the group, which is about 34, so 58 less 34, plus an assumption that that person will stay on our insurance till they reach Medicare of 7, and you put those two numbers together, that's 32. If you end the program as proposed, that window reduces from 32 years of exposure to 7 years. So when the last person in the affected group, based on the window that you left open, that significantly reduces the exposure. It doesn't fix, it significantly reduces exposure. That's reasonable for us, for the organization, because the statistics show that the non-user is the one paying, and their costs are going to increase if we don't change the program. There's kick the can options. You can ask questions about that. We can talk about that as a group. And we looked at several different other options before we came to this recommendation to end the program. So the recommendation on the table was essentially to end the stipend, the $400 a month retiree benefit for those employees hired prior to October 1, 2008. In our research and as we went forward, I would recommend to the commission or ask the commission to modify the motion that's on the table to the new staff recommendation, which I think, is a middle ground proposal. The one on the table completely ends the program. The motion that I would ask you to modify to is the one that is before you that I put before you this evening with the red line. Did you was the motion to amend the amended one? Oh, well, so forget everything I just said in that regard. I didn't catch you said amended. So the motion then that is on the table, since you already accepted the modified staff recommendation, is that the program will be modified. So for all employees hired prior to October 1, 2008, at their time of retirement, they will have an option to either A, take a stipend of $400 a month, or B, take the offering of the city's insurance program. If they do B, take the offering of the city's insurance program, they would then have to pay the full cost of whatever that rate is. That is the motion on the floor to consider.
Thank you, sir. Any other commission comment before we go to public?
No, I do have a question for Al. If they, on the $400 of the city option, I have not had a chance to read this, but can they accept the 400, like if they retire at 58 until 65? Or let me rephrase it. Can they take the city insurance until they turn 65 and then go to Medicare and still get the 400? Or once you take one option, you cannot go back or forth?
Your question is, if they retire from 58 to 65, can they take the city's insurance and pay the full freight, and then when they hit age 65, can they give back the insurance and take the $400?
Yes, sir.
That is not specifically weaved into the program, but that would be a benefit to the city, so I would interpret that as yes, they can. And then that would be an administrative function. And I know there were scoffs in the audience, but in that case, that's a benefit to the organization. So that person is choosing to retire early, and they're going to pay the full freight of insurance. Okay, yay, good for you. You retired early. Good for me, because you're paying the whole boat. And then when they hit 65, now they're going to save them some money and go to Medicare, and then take $400 from the city instead of the insurance, which I I would rather, the city would rather pay $400 as a retiree benefit than keep the retiree on the city's insurance to mitigate the chance of a high claim after 65.
Okay.
So that would be within the intent of the program.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission?
I would reserve to have a few more comments
Yes, sir.
after we hear from public commission.
We'll come back after the public. Yes, sir.
I was just going to
Oh,
add that
I'm
what
sorry.
what Al just described is very consistent with corporate America, where I spent most of my career.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Now,
sir.
and let me throw this out there too, and not to confuse things, because I know there's lots of different layers to this onion. But the nuclear option is, this is the nuclear option is already in place. So the nuclear button doesn't change in this policy. And that is, if that early retiree, which is technically 52 to 65, gets other employment where they receive health insurance, King's X, game's off, you're on your own. That's in existence now. This policy that's before you doesn't change that nuclear option.
Yes, sir.
Corporal Summersdorf, John Summersdorf. I've been with the city 19 years. I'm one of the 97 employees that loses a benefit. I'm also under a bargaining unit, the police union for corporals and sergeants. We have another unit for the officers and senior officers, and then as well as the city also has the fire department. Our department overall has around 100 employees. Some of those are part-time crossing guards, some of them are other things. 32 of those employees, a third of them, are going to be affected by this change. Out of the union members, there's 19, possibly 20, we're not sure about his date. We say it's a subject to bargaining. You can't do this without bargaining. It's part of our union contract. It's part of our benefits. The other thing is you need to look at the structure of our department. In 2006, we had 73 members, sworn officers in our department. Currently, today, we have 70. We have 3 openings. One of those 70 is actually just started the academy, won't graduate for probably 4 months. If this goes through, we have potentially 7 people that will retire before April 1st. You cannot keep our department running. You are going to lose too many people at once. This is going to be a problem for the city by not having police officers. And I think you need to consider that the ramifications, this got pushed through pretty quick. You need to look at it long and hard before you make this kind of change and take away a benefit from the city. There's going to be, the union's going to be doing whatever the unions do legally to stop this, but you need to look at the big picture for the rest of the employees also. We've got one employee that missed the 30 years by 22 days. Another one that missed it by 8 months. You're taking away some pretty significant changes to somebody who's just at that point of retirement. And I think you guys should reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again. Ryan Sapp, President, Professional Firefighters of Leesburg. Other than the retirees, I found out since I was up here last that 6 employees who are going from $500 to $1,000 a month in their pensions are now going to be up, and $200 less a month is what they're going to get in their pension. That's insane. That said, on the present, number 3, we don't work to 65. Our career can't. Police and fire can't work to 65. It's statistically impossible. So you're taking this benefit away from us and letting me have 24 of our members. And with the 30 of theirs, you're looking at half of our departments, a third of their department, and half of ours, that promised to work here, stayed here steadily, and have now reached ages where it's difficult for us to go ahead and re-enter another department for our career path to go on somebody else's insurance. That's a difficult thing once you're 40, 45, 50. You don't re-enter new departments. So while we have filed for bargaining on this, and we do believe it's mandatory, according to our council, I'm begging you, don't do this to our members. You already sunsetted it in 08. I realize cost, I realize we're on a bad cycle. I realize we had 5 drive super high claims, that happens. We get that, but we're already down to 3. It's gonna go down because we're in a bad part of it. It's gonna get to the better part of the cycle. I recommend that without doing anything else, just honor the commitment you made, or the seats that you're in made, to all of those employees 20, 25, 27, 30 years ago that said, hey, reach your retirement age. And I get the recommendation of the early retirement part, but early retirement isn't before 65 for us. Early retirement is 52 for us. So honor the commitment that we made when these employees hired on. Let them finish it out. When they're done, nobody else is going to have this benefit. Your exposure will be reduced, and everything will be normal, and people will hire on knowing that this. Everybody after 08, they already know they don't get this. But part of our retirement planning, when I started here 25 years ago, that's part of my planning. Part of my financial planning was, hey, this is going to happen, and this is what it's going to cost me. I know it's $1,600, hey, but you give me $400 towards it. Cool, so it's $1,200. Well, I got 2 kids in college. That doesn't, and I'm nearing retirement age, so that can be a significant person. Maybe not significant to every employee, but it will be to most. So please consider this before you start taking away everything we have. The general employees already lost their pension years ago and went to a different plan, and I get the finances of that. But don't take everything away. At least let them have the insurance benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment tonight on this item?
My name is Jeff Drollinger, and I worked for the city for 20 years. When I hired on, I expected to get my retirement. They shut it down in 08. My amount of money that I will receive from that retirement is $300. The $400 on top of that gave me $700. The insurance that cost me and my wife will be $898. If you take the $400 away, I will be losing $800 because not only do I not get that $400, but I have to make up the $400 out of my retirement, which is only $300. So that makes it $800 that I will be losing and everybody else will be losing. Not everybody has deep pockets. We worked for you guys for 20 years, 30 years, 35 years. We do not deserve this late in the game to get bamboozled this way. I would like everybody to think about that. When you put your hands in your pocket, how much money do you have to the guys that have been here or getting ready to retire? We're not going to go out and get second jobs unless we have to, and nobody wants to at 65, 68 years old. We want to retire, enjoy what we've done, and live out our senior days. So think about that before you say yes tonight, please.
Thank you, sir.
My name's James Jennels, and I've been here for 31 years. Members of the commission, I would like to address the further reduction of the employee benefits. As the gentlemen have said, our benefits were reduced back when our pension was changed. I attended that meeting, and the employee turnout was poor. I talked to personnel after the meeting. They felt that the commission had already made up their minds, and what they had to say didn't matter. Many of our coworkers will be financially stressed with the change to our health insurance. If you have already made your decision, please reconsider. Leesburg is on its way to become one of the biggest cities in Central Florida. The tax base will become much greater than it ever was before. The city employees will be serving more residents than ever before, and therefore greater responsibility. Don't let it be said that the great city of Leesburg doesn't care about its employees. Many of our employees work in the utilities. They see the uptick in number of wastewater sewer laterals, water meters, gas meters, and electric meters that are installed on a regular basis. Are we going to tell them that our revenues have not increased? The city may not have raised their tax millage rate, but property values have increased. Therefore, the homeowner is paying more property tax. I know, I live in the city. We are not just talking about numbers. We are talking about people with families. As a supervisor, I see the line items and budgets. Salaries and benefits are listed as line items. Our employees pay the same amount for gas, milk, and other items as you. These prices went up exponentially in a short amount of time. These employees count on these salaries and benefits. After retirement at age 65, the city covers 20% and Medicare covers 80%. The employee pays as much for this insurance as a full-time employee that's covered 100%. Does the change in insurance benefits affect your financial future? You get a cost of living increase when we do, just as a full-time employee would. If you were not on the commission in 2008, this is what happens. 13 years ago, our pension got frozen. To present, we lost 26% of our retirement income. This group that you're speaking of, this 166. This was based on 2% per year of service. It would then be multiplied by the average of your 3 highest years of service. This was also frozen in 2008. Now you are to decide whether or not to further break down a retirement that so many of our personnel took pay cuts to receive. When they hired on here, they took a pay cut because the benefit package that they hired on for was so good at the time. They took a pay cut to get that. We already took one for the team, or the platoon, or the Gipper, or however you want to phrase it. They've already taken a hit. I'm reminded of the many employees that didn't survive to see the retirement. I'd like to mention a few that many were near and dear to us. Jennifer and David O., John Blue, Lowell Mishu, Sylvia Sabato, and LaDonna Green. I feel confident that their decision to work and serve the city of Leesburg was motivated partly by the idea of a retirement with benefits. I've talked to several still employed, and they took a cut in pay to get a position here, including me. I've worked here most of my life to be a public servant and receive the benefits I was told were mine. I'm 58, and I've worked here 31 years. I've worked here most of my life. I'm just one out of 166. We have given the best years of our lives to the city. City pride dictates that Leesburg treat its employees fairly. It is not fair to sign people up onto jobs, then take away their benefits. Thank you for giving me this time, and I hope that you change your minds.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
If you've heard me before, you all know how much I hate doing this, so please excuse the quiver. And it's kind of hard to follow James because I said, I think, a lot of what we all feel. I've been here almost 33 years, so that's over half my life. We won't exactly say how much that half is. Back in 2008, when our plan was frozen, I went to the management who was here at that time, and I asked them what other options they had looked at. Did you look at freezing it just from that point forward, freezing it? Did you consider buying into FRS? And I was basically told, we're going to freeze the plan, go back to your desk, don't ask any questions. That was hard to swallow, and they were doing it within about a 3-week period. We had people on vacation that when they got back from vacation, they were basically told, you have a week to decide if you're going to retire or if you're going to stay and have the plan frozen. So I do at least I give kudos to Mr. Minner for the 6-month window to help people make that decision, because that is something we did not get before, and we do appreciate that. At that time, when we were moved to the 457 plan, we were told the city's going to kick in X percent. We're in a recession. As the city's finances improve, this will change. Well, guess what? All these years later, it's exactly the same. My pension being frozen literally was cut more than 50%. What I have made up for in the 457 in that time with what the city has put in, I can't even say it would make up a tenth of that, because it's not a lot of money, and I have invested it the way our plan has recommended. It's not anywhere close to making up what I lost. So if nothing else, maybe y'all could ask staff to look into fixing that a little bit, because I did some quick research online, and what we contribute is not what the cities I was able to find online are doing for their people. So at a minimum, I think that needs to be looked at. This health insurance benefit was something that kept a lot of our people here, a lot of the people in this room, a lot of the people that aren't in this room. It's a huge deal. And these employees, these faces, we're your biggest asset. If you don't have people fixing your water lines, running your water plant, climbing your electric poles, manning your library, staffing this room, everything else that this city has doesn't have a lot of value without your people. And I think we deserve to have what we were promised and what kept us here delivered to us. I understand y'all are in a totally horrible position. You've got to manage the taxpayers' dollars, but we deserve the same consideration, the same level of consideration that you're given to that. And I know it's not easy. Y'all have to go out and face your constituents. But I would also like to assure our taxpayers that I don't know too many people here who are going to retire and go travel around Europe. We want to be able to retire, keep our houses, maybe take a vacation to the beach or the mountains, and not have to worry about how we're going to pay our bills. We're not getting rich off the city of Leesburg. None of us are. This is kind of cheesy, but I've had this quote taped to my computer. It's kind of aged since about 3 city managers ago. When I had a very bad day and I happened upon this, and it means a lot to me. It makes me think about how I try to treat our staff when I deal with them. And it basically says, you can buy a person's time. You can buy his physical presence in a given place. You can buy a measured number of his skilled muscular motions per hour. You cannot buy initiative. You cannot buy the devotion of hearts, minds, and souls. You have to earn those things. These employees have been here for all these years, and I think we have proven our devotion to this city, working through hurricanes, working through recessions, working for years without raises, working through a pandemic, providing the same level of service to our citizens. We didn't close down. When the hurricanes came, we had a lot of these folks out on push crews, staying away from their families for 2-3 days at a time, doing what our residents needed to do. And people talked about how great Leesburg recovered from the storms, and it was because of these people in this room. During COVID, we didn't shut down. Our staff found creative ways to continue providing the services that our citizens are used to. And I think that needs to be recognized. So I guess what I'm asking for y'all is, don't pull the rug out from under us. We have depended on this benefit just in the hope that we could retire early. Because without insurance or a means to get insurance, you can't retire early nowadays. You have to have that. That's part of the package. And if you're depending on the benefit we were promised in your planning, and then suddenly it's gone, where does that leave you? You're going back to point A, trying to start all over again. The offer of the stipend, this amended motion that y'all have you have on the floor now, I would like you, if you're going to do it that way, I would like you to consider a few things. One of them is there a way to make it more difficult for future commissions to come in and try to change this benefit? I don't know if you can do that by maybe requiring a supermajority to change it. If there's anything you can do, because in 8 years, y'all are going to be gone. No offense, we've got term limits now. So in 10 years, if this comes up again, nobody's going to remember this discussion except for the people in this room, however many of us are left, because it's a finite number. We dwindle. That number gets smaller every year. People pass away, people get other employment, and they're kicked out. So this isn't a forever thing. There's only a limited number of us. I don't think we should have to come back, and y'all shouldn't have to listen to me quiver, every 10 years for the same benefit. It's something that we should be able to depend on and know we're going to get. My second thing is, please consider if $400 is actually enough of a stipend. Back when this was set back in 2008, it was kind of an arbitrary number, was based on, my memory's not what it should be, but I think it was based on what the premiums were at that time to make it not so much for the retirees. If somebody has to go out in the marketplace and find insurance now, I don't know how far $400 is going to go. And I'm not asking for $1,000, but anything you could possibly consider to bump that up, maybe $450 or $500, or even if you could build in a cost of living adjustment that every 3 years or every 5 years we get a 1%, 2%, 3% based on CPI or whatever it is at that time. But it's just something to adjust so that this young man who is our 33-year exposure, when he retires in 33 years, this benefit actually means something, and it's not just a drop in the bucket at that time. And then I've already mentioned this, if y'all can just maybe ask staff to look at the current plan and make sure it's up to par with what our other local municipalities are doing, because just the quick and dirty look I gave online, I think there's better that we can do. So I just ask that you please show our employees that the promises that are made to them mean something. Show us that we can depend on the city honoring those promises that were made to us now and in the future coming up. And I thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hester. Any other public comment?
Yes, my name's Greg David. I work for the electric department. I've been there for 34 years. It's kind of like the firefighter guy said, line work's tough on you. I've been there all this time. I don't know of but one guy that's made it to 65 that could even retire. And quite a few of them have died even before that don't even get this benefit. Like Al said a minute ago, we made a new deal in 2008. That's for those people. We want you to stick to the deal that was made to us. That's what we were promised. Our pension was froze. Now you want to take another $400 out of our pension on top of it? Every year we're evaluated on the core values of the city. Every employee in here. One of them's a caring organization. All I'm asking you is you follow those same core values that you expect all of us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
Greg Humrich, I'm a dispatcher for the police department, so that's an unsworn position. So I don't fall under a CBA like the officers do. so I don't have any bargaining chip as far as that goes. I'm unfortunately in a window where, at least the amended motion that I understand now is for the, as the city manager euphemistically called it, split the baby and give the people the $400 after they turn 65. Prior to that, there was no way for me to get to that 58 by next April 1st, and I was out of luck. I guess the best I can hope for now is to get to that 65, get Medicare, and get that $400 to help offset that cost. Realistically, I'm not going to make enough retirement with the new plan. I'm one of those people that got 2.5 years or whatever it was on the fixed pension plan before it was frozen. I'm going to end up being a greeter at Walmart or something like that just to probably make ends meet, realistically, based on that.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Michelle Jennels. I don't work for the city, but my husband does. He's put in 31 years. And a lot of these guys, like he said, when the hurricane comes, my husband leaves me and my family to come out and serve the city in extremely bad weather conditions. I had a tree fall on our house, and my husband's out saving everybody else in Leesburg, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the situation at home. These guys have put in their years of service. He's got 31 years, and he's only going to get 18 years of his pension. And I just don't think that's right. It's not just him. It's, I don't know how many of them out here. And I don't know how many of you, because I don't work for the city, are affected by, if any of you were here prior to 2008 and have lost any of your pension, and the cut what you're doing or the increase on the health insurance, how many of you that are here on this board or commission are affected by it? I'm just curious, because if none of you are, we definitely need to hear from more of the employees, especially the ones that have put in all these years and have worked for their time to get back and enjoy what they've worked so hard for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other further public comment?
I guess I like being up here. I just would like to clarify the motion that's on the floor for the $400. Is that only if you retire at 65, or is that if you retire at 58, you get the 400 and never come back on the city's plan, or is it only at 65?
It's as it is existing, Pam.
I'm sorry?
It's as it is existing. So if you're 58, you get the
Okay.
$400. If you're 55, you're eligible for it at 58. And if you're 52, you're eligible for it
Okay.
at 58,
I just
unless
wanted-
you hit the nuclear button.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I thought I heard somebody say 65, and I wasn't sure what ended up in the recommendation. Thank you.
I mean, this is a very important topic for the entire city, especially for our employees. So if you have something to say, please feel free to come and talk tonight. We normally do 3 minutes, but this is very important. So if you have something to say, please come. Let us hear. You have, I think Ms. Harrison got some other ideas, some other suggestions. So if you have some, this is really now the time to come and express yourself. Sending it.
Good evening. My name is Dina Ouellette. I'm a very new employee to the city, and I was very excited to come to the city. And hearing this and hearing some of these people and the number of people that we could potentially leave the city, that's a huge vacuum of talent, of knowledge, that we're not going to be easily replaced. We can't easily replace that, and certainly can't do it quickly. You know, I have the benefit of working with somebody that has a vast knowledge of information and skills and networking that I can only hope to achieve. And if we lose that system in place and we don't have something back up, you can't hire somebody, a 21-year-old, to take somebody that's been here for 21 years and have that same level of knowledge and skill. It's just not going to happen. And we're going to lose the quality of care that these guys bring to the city, to our citizens. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sonia Viciola, I work for IT. There's nothing that I'm going to say up here that nobody has said yet. I don't envy the board. I don't envy the employees in this room. Mr. Peterson, you said something to the effect of corporate America, and we've been moving toward corporate America probably under, I think that started under Jay Evans. The problem with that outview is that you don't pay us corporate America wages. So we continue, this is the 4th time in 15 years that I've stood before the board because they were taking a benefit away from this particular group of people. The only thing I would ask that maybe we can look at is during our discussions with the employees, somebody brought up the wellness center, and that was supposed to defer costs. It's no secret that the wellness center has got really poor service. I understand that they have been put on notice and that we are going, excuse me, out to bid for another company. Is there a way that we can hold these discussions for another year until we can see if we can bring the participation rate up for the wellness center? Excuse me, I am not a public speaker, I apologize. Just to see if that would defer some of these costs that we're talking about, as that was initially the whole point of putting the wellness center into place. Plus, I would like this board to consider the growth that's coming to Leesburg. We already are shorthanded in most of the departments that I deal with. I have a 360-degree view of the departments in my position, and there is a lot of open positions that need to be filled, and we're not getting people. I have a position currently open that I've gotten 2 applications in 3 weeks for. That says a lot for what we're paying and what we're offering. So those are the things I would like the board to consider before they make a motion on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one more question.
Yes, sir.
I remember somebody told me something in one of the meetings. Y'all have known about this problem for 3 years. And you haven't done anything about it, haven't brought it to our attention. Now, 6 months from now, if you make the wrong decision, you're going to send an attitude to 166 people. I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you, Mr. Minor. This is our lives. 3 years to make a decision is a long time that affects 166 people. We're asking you, if you don't make a decision tonight, wait, sleep on it, talk about it, figure something else out besides doing what they're proposing to do to 166 people from 20 years to 35 years worth of experience that we have dedicated to the city of Leesburg to make it what it is today. 3 years to make a decision.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment before we turn back to the commission? Okay, commissioners? Yes, sir, Ms. Connell?
Yes, I have several things. To answer your question, yes, when they froze the general pension plan, yes, absolutely did affect me. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. This group we're talking about, the 166, that pretty much is the group that got their pension froze in 2008. So the city not been real kind to them on freezing the pension on them, and best I can recall, the first couple of years after that, the 401 that the city provided us was next to nothing. So I give them a lot of credit that they're still with the city, even though their pension plan has been frozen. And yes, it did. Literally, when they came down with that decision in 2008, it affected everybody tremendously for the rest of their life. Absolutely, I agree with that. You know, out of the 166 people that are presently part of the plan, when I looked at the numbers, 67 of those individuals are in the range of 30 to 50. And, you know, just things happen in life. And so when we talk about 166, I really don't think realistically we're looking at 166 people reaching the finish line. Things happen, people move, people quit, people get better jobs, what have you. So I don't really think we're dealing with a full 166 people. As far as the number spike in the last couple years, I mean, as Al said, you know, there was 3 to 5 people that really raised that bar. And I don't know that's going to be consistent every year. Maybe just had a bad cycle for the last couple of years. I do believe that when the city froze the pension in 08, I felt as an employee it was a knee-jerk reaction to a bad situation in economic times. And I definitely don't want to have another knee-jerk reaction for a couple bad years in health insurance. And this is a major decision to make that's going to affect 166 people. And I think it came about pretty quick. I mean, my thoughts are I would not like to vote on this tonight. I would either like to put it off to a workshop to have more discussion, more time to think about other options, or to, you know, look at the plan next year. Let's see if it goes up again, or if it levels out and comes back down. You know, we're not talking about a drastic amount of people that really raised our insurance. We're talking about 3 to 5 people that bumped the insurance rates by $1 million. I don't know that's going to be consistent every year. And I just think it's something that we really should consider. I mean, it's a big decision for a lot of people. We have not had a lot of time to talk about it. We've had last couple of years, it has been a spike in the insurance rates, but a lot of that has been contributed by a handful of people. And I just think it's too big a decision to make this quick. I think we need some more data. I think we need to give it a little bit more time to see if the rates continue to go up. And I think maybe you might see them playing off. I mean, if the majority of the complaints or the cost was associated with 3 to 5 people. So, you know, that's my opinion. Like I said, these people have already been through a lot. We already canceled their general fund pension back in 08. They chose to stay with us for various reasons. One of them might be the health plan, and then now pull that out from underneath them at the 11th hour when a lot of them are getting close to retirement. Like I said, 67 of the 166 are still 30 to 50, so they still have a long ways to go. I don't think 166 are actually going to end up cashing in on this policy. We'll go over other places or whatever. So I'd like to see us vote this down and then have another motion and bring it back to postpone it and revisit this next budget year and relook at the numbers then.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to agree with a lot of Commissioner Cannell's comments. This is a tough issue. I didn't mean to offend anybody in the room by comparing it to, you know, I was in corporate America for a long time. I won't say how long. I try not to talk about my age. But just for the record, I mean, I went through, even as a senior person, having to make these kind of decisions. And so I've been in your shoes. But and I've only been on the commission 2.5 years. I was not aware of this pension debacle. So I am sensitive to that. When I first heard it, I said, okay, I'm sure they took away the pension. I assume they upped the percentages to some other form of retirement plan, because that's what we did in corporate America. I had my pension taken away, but they bumped our 401k or contributed, you know, more, but then they took that away. So I've been there. But in summary, I am sensitive to that. That's news to me tonight. We don't need to get into that tonight, but I think we need to fix that problem in the short, medium term. We're going to have to, I agree with Commissioner Cannell. I hope this is a one-time thing. We are guilty of kicking this can down the road. But I guess I wouldn't mind regrouping a little bit out of respect to the employees. I am very sensitive to this group that gave a lot of years, and here they are. I'm in that age group, this 58 to 65 age group. Can't believe I confessed that. But you know, I do understand it. So I wouldn't mind the commission re-looking at it, rethinking it. My immediate reaction here in the crowd, I don't like being disloyal to long-term employees. I agree with Commissioner Cannell that hopefully this is a one-time thing. Yeah, I'm a numbers person. We are transferring we have to transfer 1.2. We're going to transfer $1,750,000, and that hurts. Maybe, and I respect Al's. I told Al today I thought he made a great recommendation, but so I'm going to be a true politician and flip-flop and say I'd like to regroup, look at it a little closer, maybe spread the pain a little bit more. I think we have a very good medical plan. It's the best plan I've ever been in. You know, I don't qualify for city pension, but I do qualify for city insurance. It's a great plan. Maybe we can spread the cost, you know, buy a little time, spread the cost, you know, to everybody a little bit more. But I am sensitive to this 58 to 65 group. So I'm probably going to side with Commissioner Cannell. I wouldn't mind voting this motion down, delay it, and come back immediately, I guess in 2 to 4 weeks. Sorry to get long-winded.
Thank you, sir. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, so I know it hasn't got a whole lot of play the last 3 years, but I've certainly brought this up every year for more than 3 years, that this was an unsustainable benefit. Every year at budget that we can't afford this. You know, we're dumping more and more money in. And so this isn't, I wish it was a one-time deal. If it was a one-time deal, I'd say, yeah, let's wait another year. But it's not. We've had 1 year of bad experience. We're in 3 of really bad experience. So to put it in perspective, $1.75 million we just transferred. That's a third of the entire city's ad valorem revenue this year. A third. So if we have a good year, we might get it down to 20%. $1 million is 18%. So if we have a great year, we're still talking about putting an entire fifth of the city's ad valorem revenue towards this benefit every year. And I get it. It's a bad situation. It's not fair. But sometimes it's just about numbers. We have so much money every year coming into the city, and we have to run the city with that. And we can't spend a third of our revenues from property tax every year on this. It's just not sustainable. Healthcare is not going down. Long-run inflation average for healthcare is 5.2%. That's over the last 15 years. So healthcare costs going up. This number is likely to get bigger on average over time. Maybe not bigger than the 1.75, but if you look over a 3-year average, you're still well over $1 million, and that's going to grow. We kick the can down the road. What's going to happen is, I can tell you what's going to happen, is we're going to come back in 2 years, and we're going to say, you know what? We've got to get rid of this and get rid of the $400 because now we're spending $2+ million a year on this. The longer it goes, the worse it's going to get. The worse it gets, the worse the solution is. I mean, this is the best we could come up with. I do absolutely agree with with the COLA. I think that's very fair. Absolutely right. $400 today and 30 years are very different things. So adjusting annually by CPI, I think that certainly needs to happen. I don't really want to get into the pension too much. I think the city contributes 5% currently to 401k, which is very high compared to the private sector. And when you look, does the city pay like Google? No, but do they pay like local private companies in Lake County? Yes, they do, with great benefits. The healthcare, if we want a better healthcare plan, well, we could get rid of the wellness center. The wellness center costs about $75 a month per employee, but it's a nice benefit. But that doesn't take care of these high cost claims. The wellness center doesn't fix those. Maybe there's some things we can do on health insurance, but this is, if we don't do something tonight, we're going to be back next year with a worse problem. We've kicked it down the road as long as we can. There's just no good solution. So I think it's very important that we move forward with this.
And I'll let other commissioners talk. I don't want to kick it down the road. I want to just say let's huddle the next 2-4 weeks and see if we can come up with a better plan. I don't want to ignore this problem.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Burr, you have anything?
I agree that there is no great solution for us, but as Dan said, our costs are going up, and we can't afford to provide the same level of care. There's not enough money in the kitty. So we can sit here and say, oh, let's look at it again next year, but it's 3 years running now. And I think it would be irresponsible of us to not address it.
And just for the record, you know, I was here in 2008 when the program was frozen at the recommendation of the city manager. Remember, in 2008, we had a nationwide crash of our economy. The city was not immune to losses in 2008. So that wasn't, I don't think, a knee-jerk reaction. That was a realistic reaction that we were in financial trouble, as most companies, most banks, most organizations. Someone said we had 3 years to make this decision. The only difference is we're making it tonight as opposed to making it last year. I think that was the care and the concern of the commission last year, is let's wait and see what happens. And instead of getting better, it actually got worse. Many of you, and I wish Al would have brought more of the slide presentation that we were presented with to kind of show where we're getting this money from. You're going to the Workman's Comp Fund and getting $1 million. You go back a few years ago, the healthcare fund had about $4 million in the healthcare fund. So you go from $4 million to almost less than $2 million in about 4 or 5 years. So this is not an issue that we have just knee-jerk reaction. We've been talking about this, and Commissioner Roebuck is correct. He sat here for 4 or 5 years looking at us every budget year and said, we got to do something about the healthcare fund. We all looked at it and said, oh, Dan, you just being a stickler for dollars. You know, we got the money. You know, we kept pushing Dan off and pushing him off because he kept letting us know this is a problematic area, not just in city government, but also in corporate America. You know, and I agree, as Pam Hester said, with the 457 plan, those are things that the city can look at. We have a good year, maybe we put more than 5% in. Or we have other things where we look at on a more consistent basis, and not just balancing the budget. You know, we do have a lot of growth coming in, but many, you know, the budget, dollars are tied to certain departments, and we have those money like a pie chart. So we just can't say we got a lot of growth, let's take a lot of money and put it to the healthcare fund. The healthcare fund should, the best of its ability, kind of take care of itself. But to pull $1.7 million from the other parts of the city and say we're going to shore up the healthcare fund, I think that's kind of irresponsible for us as commissioners. And it is a tough decision. It is very tough. We talked about the 32 employees and 19 union. We talked about the bargaining sessions that we may need to look into, losing 7 police officers. And we talk about institution knowledge. People that's been here 30 years, how do you replace that if they decide to leave? It's very difficult. So maybe the commission looks at, maybe not while I'm here, maybe in the future, look at, you know, can we do something with employee salaries? Can we make it more beneficial for certain departments? But I can tell you, while I've been here, the police chief has came in and we said we need more money for police officers. We want to be competitive. We raised the rates of police officers. The fire department, we try to be competitive. And I'm sure the city manager has done that at other departments to make sure we can pay our employees something that's comparable to other cities in Lake County. Since I've been here, I think Al was here, and when we came with our department heads have asked us for more dollars for employees to try to retain them. So we've done that. You know, this is just a real difficult issue because it does involve major medical claims you're talking about, and it may just be 1 year, but it hasn't. It's been multiple years that we've had to deal with this, and we did. We kicked the can last year, said we should have dealt with this last year. We said, no, let's wait another year, and now we're here. We're at $1.7 million of being able to transfer from other departments in the city that are doing well. Who's to say those departments may not do as well next year? So to deal with it next year may be to a point where you may say we don't have the money to transfer. So I think the city manager has done a fair job of coming in and altering the resolution tonight to keep the $400 to try our best to mitigate that factor. And we should look at it. Is $400 a good number? Should it be 5? Should it be 6? Can we afford it? I think that would be the ultimate goal when we look at that. I wouldn't want to hand strap a future commission because it may be another issue 5 years from now where there is a cash issue. So I think not just to hinder them from changing, but also to increase the amount of dollars that are set aside for different retirees. This is a difficult decision, but I think it's something that we have to address sooner rather than later. So, commissioners, are there any more discussion tonight. Do have a motion on the floor. Yes, sir.
I just have one more comment. I guess, be sure I was clearly understood. The only comment I'm bringing up right now is, if this motion is voted down and vote on Commissioner Connell's motion, could we, I know we struggled through this in budget, but I guess tonight I'm kind of leaning more towards should it be spread more equally among all employees versus this one group. That's my only comment.
You got anything?
No, my last comment was, should it be spread more equally among all employees versus we are kind of clobbering this one group? And I know we talked about this in budget, and I know, Al, I told you even as of today, I was okay with this recommendation.
Look, I'll do a little bit of a diatribe here, and I'm not sure, Commissioner Connell, if you had a motion on the floor to table. So that may, just as a matter of parliamentary procedures, a motion to table is superseding. So those commissioners who may want to table this, remember that after I'm done this little soliloquy here. There's just 3 points I'd just kind of like to sum up the discussion with. I think everybody in this room who's a commissioner, your manager, or an employee of this organization is in a tough spot for different reasons. This commission is a body that's obviously elected locally, and sitting before you are 166 of your employees who you've hired me to manage on a day-to-day basis. There's 25,000 minus 166 other employees that you guys report to every 4 years, and you answer to them when you go to Publix, when you go to Walmart, or when you do whatever, go take your kid playing baseball. So there's a whole nother angle to that room, and those are the other sides of the community who pay the bills, who aren't employees of this organization. And then you're before 166 employees who are in front of you who have this public employee, as I call it, a public employee dilemma. Those employees who give good service, who give their efforts, who come out in inclement weather, who do dangerous jobs, whether you're a lineman or a police officer or a firefighter or a general employee of the city. I would think, from my perspective, we give too much difference to the different class. Everybody, no matter what your job is in the public and sector, is an important job. And I think we remunerate you for that. They're in difficult positions because they're up against losing a benefit that they had counted on. They're up a difficult position because they got to yell at their bosses. And that's tough to do. The only thing I would add to Pam's speech is that her boss didn't yell at her and tell her to go back to her seat. And we had many a conversation on this topic, and we seem to be getting along, and I don't think you'll have to call the police department to split us up tomorrow. Although you might want to keep the phone on speed dial. That's a joke. And again, all politics is local. I think Tip O'Neill, the long-term Speaker of the House, said that. So you guys are grappling with a decision that the federal government isn't even grappling with. And the federal government needs to, whether you're blue or red. Social Security and FICA and Medicare, all those, you got a difference. 65 for Medicare, 67 in 3 months or whatever year you were born after 1 month after 1953, whatever that number is. So there's a separation in there. It's lack of courage to tackle, and we can keep kicking the can down the road. So I will put out there, kicking the can down the road, it's always an option. Commissioner Peterson, you said you got to tackle it tonight, or if you don't want to in a couple weeks. I don't think you have many options. You did 2 things this evening that mitigate the problem. You increased the rates and decreased the retiree discount, which I think you needed to do, and you shifted cash around to set you up for 22. Now, hence a couple of questions that came up during meetings and these type of things. Well, Minner, you didn't include the $500,000 in stopgap insurance in your numbers. No, I didn't. This is why. I don't know what the final solution is going to be. I don't know what the claims experience is going to be next year. We guess, remember, with assumptions, it's still a guess, 7.5 million is what our claims were going to be next year. And I explained to the groups, if we do better than that, our number goes up. If we do less than that, it goes in the pocket. So based on what you do tonight, that might have been a good play not to put that money in the pocket, because that's going to give you an extra $500,000 that we didn't count on. At the end of the day, kick the can down the road is an option. What it does is 7.5 million is the magic number. If the claims come in below that, yay, you had a good year. You can kick it down once more, and the employees get to say, I told you so. If it's not, my guess it's going to be another $1 million you're looking at next year, which we probably won't have in the fund, and then we'll have to start hitting up the other operating funds again. I don't think it'll be a crazy number. You know, I don't think it'll be $2, $3, $4 million that you're going to have to yank from the operating funds, but it'll be another $1 million. It's like the frog, right? The frog's in the pot. When do you change? So, long story short, the only thing I will say, and one of our employees even quipped about it, was a reaction from me on one of the statements that was made. This hasn't been ignored. I tried to express that to the employees through the slides, through the presentations. Commissioner Roebuck spoke to it. We have been talking about this for 3 years, and we've kicked it down the can 3 years. We've kept the employees' contribution rate steady for 3 years. We've used our cash for 3 years. We said it was coming. I will leave you with that. So I don't think it's an easy decision. I understand, and frankly, I understand any decision that's made. The tough one is to stop it and do the recommendation, and that's bifurcated and split the baby. And the one out there to kick the can or to table it, that's out there. And then we'll be here next year, and it'll be, and I think if you kick the can down the road, we'll be here saying, we slid by, whew, or we need to find another $1 million or so bucks.
I do not want to kick this can down the road. And I know we talked about it in budget, and I'm repeating myself, but I'm asking if we could come back in 2 weeks and try to spread it among all the city employees, which is probably going to just aggravate everybody versus just, a third of them.
Yeah, Commissioner Peterson, with all due respect, there's nothing in 2 weeks that's going to change the information that's before you.
No, he's asking.
You're asking for other information
No.
to come up with the
I'm
different
saying, what I'm being more specific would be increasing the employee contribution for everybody. But I think, I think in budget, you showed that just doesn't work.
We showed how that doesn't work, and that was the slide, and even an employee too commented about it, how management wasn't looking at different avenues. We gave you the slide in the presentation that said these were the steps we looked at, 5 steps. One of them was increase rates. We increase rates. We increase rates to the employees that range from those numbers I gave you tonight, $0 to $20 a month. That generated $125,000. The city kicked in, I think, another 100 or I don't know what that number is. It was that big number.
But isn't it also is that a legal
so
requirement?
to get the kind of number that you're talking about, which is to get $1 million, you're talking about an increase of a rate to the employees that's so substantial that I don't think's reasonable.
But didn't you say also about something legal that we could?
And then I didn't want to get into that discussion because it's tricky, and we can if you want.
That's basic.
But there's the difference between the offering and a benefit. The offering is we have the 4 rates of program: employee only, employee, child, employee, spouse, family. Everybody who is working for the city or who has worked is entitled to tap into that some way. That's what the law says. That's the offering. The benefit becomes how you tap into it. You can change the benefit, but you can't change the offering. So if you change the benefit all the different ways, you're not going to generate enough revenue to get $1 million. That's kind of the magic number in this fund-ish, if you want. You can't change the offering. You can't change the program. And so I just, we are at an impasse. We're at just a difficult spot. I'll tell the commission, yeah, you can kick the can down the road. You're gonna be okay for 22, probably. But my guess is we're gonna be sitting here, right here again next year, talking about the same thing. Or, you know, you sneak by. And then the employees, and I understand their position, because I know the next thing that they're going to say to me, and I want to say this, and I don't mean to keep going on. But, okay, well, we mitigated it. Okay, so there's the chance that you do this, we mitigate it, we still have high claims next year, then the employees are going to say, see, we told you so, you didn't do anything. And that's why that number of the 7 to 33 is so important, because it is secular. Next year, we might have a good year. But 3 years from now, we won't. And then I'm still in that 7-year window. So if the organization knows that that benefit, not the offering, is significantly modified in 7 years, we've reduced our exposure, not 33. And I know that's an abstract, tough thing to swallow, for all those things I said. So everybody's here is in a tough spot. I respect what everybody has said this evening. The commission, this is where I really appreciate what you guys do, because you guys get it too. So
Well, I don't want to be misunderstood. I have not once said kick this. I've actually said 3 times I do not want to kick this can down the road. So I don't want to be categorized like that. All I said was, you know, I'm saying spread it among everybody. That's all I'm saying. If that's not the solution, I'll be quiet. But, you know, when I hear you say we have not increased employee contribution in 3 years, yes, I don't take it lightly, increasing the employee side, but this is great insurance. And all I'm saying is spread it, maybe wait 2 weeks and see if there's a way to spread it among all the employees. I think the recommendation you made, I said earlier today, was a good one. They may still get hit harder than they like, but anything we can do to soften that up a little bit and just go back and spread it among all the employees. And the basis of that, I'm repeating myself in this little babble, is when you said they have not been increased in, the average employee's contribution has not been changed in 3 years. I have never experienced that in my career. So if we have to do a little catch up there and they go up, you know, $60, you know, for the last 3 years instead of $20 for a year, you know, I don't know. I throw that out, and I'm done.
I'll make a motion to amend the $400 to increase annually by COLA.
Do we have a second on that motion? What Commissioner Roebuck is amending?
So I want to make a motion to amend this so the $400 benefit increases each year by CPI. So that way, over time, it remains, you know, $400 of today's money. So the guy in 33 years isn't getting $400, so get whatever that inflation adjustment would be. I assume we can probably afford that out.
Do we have a second on that amendment? No second?
The entire thing and vote for the increased benefit, but if you don't want to give the increased benefit, that's okay.
I'll second it, and let's talk to us about it.
I'm okay with, I'll second it. Okay, I had some questions on it.
Okay, we second it for discussion. Okay,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
and I know the process, believe it.
And then this is to Pam's point, is that it's not fair to say it's $400 forever, because $400 20 years from now isn't worth a whole lot of money. So it should just like rent, you know, if you have a commercial rent, it's going to go up each year by CPI. Their benefit would go up. So next year it might be $402. It just keeps pace with inflation. So
yeah, no, I have no problem with that. I had something else in my mind, but I'll second the motion. Sorry.
And then, not part of that motion, but yeah, I mean, maybe Al could study what the right number is. That like.
Yeah, you heard that, Al. Yes, sir. Any other discussion?
Yes. Would that motion, Dan, pertain to the retirees too, or just the ones coming up to retire? Would it pertain
I
to
think
everybody
it would
that's
have to
gonna be
apply
on
to
it?
everyone. I don't think we could have a benefit that wouldn't apply to everyone.
Okay.
So I'm okay with it applying to everyone. Okay.
Thank you. That's why I had a big blank spill over here, that exact issue right there.
That's a
Okay.
good question.
All right. Let's vote on that motion, please, that amendment to that motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Okay, so back to the main motion. Real quick, I think Mr. Sapp said something about the bargaining. Is that something we have to deal with?
I think the position of the bargaining units is that this is a benefit that should be collectively bargained, will be the IFF and the PBA's positions. So I'd imagine that we would get a challenge from this should you pass this. I will keep you apprised. Management's position is that Article 7, there's an article, can't speak of it off the top of my head, that gives us the right to modify this on the fly.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Going back to the 2008 freezing the general pension plan, when the city did that, they froze the general pension, but the fire department, police department's pension did not get froze. So I would have I already have an issue with this, but I would have a real issue is if this gets passed and it turns out that we have to work out some type of deal with the police and fire pension, and they get to maintain this benefit, and the general employees get squeezed out again.
So you're saying you want to open up the...
No, what I'm saying is, I don't like the proposal anyway. I'm not gonna vote to approve it, but what I'm saying is, if it gets voted to approve this, and then we find out, and I guess in your negotiation with the police and fire, that we have to negotiate with them, I would hate to see the general employees get froze out again on a benefit, just like they did in 08 with their pension, and we have to compromise with police and fire. Nothing against police and fire, I love them. So policeman myself for years, but I'm just trying to stick up for the general employees too.
Okay.
I would agree, and while I'm in favor of this, if that were to happen, I'd want to rediscuss the whole thing, which I guess we can always do anytime we want to, if it went down that road where we had to only take away the benefit from some employees but not others. I'd want to have another discussion at that time, if that ever happened.
Fred, have you looked at this at all?
Yeah. What was that?
Have you looked at this at all with the bargaining?
No, I haven't. That was the first time it came up tonight.
Okay. So if we approve this tonight and say the bargaining departments, police and fire, come and like in 08, we couldn't freeze their plan, could we come back and unfreeze this one or add this benefit back?
If it comes down to the decision that you can't change their benefit, then it won't be changed, period.
But could we come back on this tonight and reverse this decision if it's approved?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Any further commission comments, discussion? All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
No.
Commissioner Connell? No. Commissioner
No.
Roebuck? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Burry?
Yes.
Mayor Christian?
Yes. Item 6C4 is discussion on growth matters.
Good job putting on a light agenda, Al.
I tried. I guess I'll kick this off here real quick. The purpose of this agenda item is really just a discussion item to talk about the growth issues. And just in my defense, there was, you might have been sequestered by August 4th, so this might have been the last chance. And it looks like that's going on. But okay, in any case, in all seriousness, it's been a long evening. Obviously, a lot of growth issues are occurring right now. The city over the past several years, and I don't know what the delta is there, has about 25,000 plotted lots that are, or not plotted, but approved lots for growth. Each subdivision pretty much that you have dealt with in the past several years has gotten a lot of contention, especially in areas that are up against unincorporated areas of significant ruralness was, I don't know if that's a real word. To that extent, the county commission has also made public comments about the city of Leesburg. They've used their statutory powers even to sequester you, I don't know if that's the right word either, into a joint meeting to discuss growth. Comments have come up from different commissioners at different times about growth, and so thought it would just be a good opportunity to talk about growth, what the kind of the joint consensus is of the body. So before you do meet with the commission, you had a public discussion on this matter. So towards that end, I've sent 3 documents to the commission for you to read at your dining pleasure. One of those documents was the ISBA. And I'll just give you a quick synopsis of the ISBA. That was a document we approved 2016-ish or 2014. What was the date on that?
14.
Is it 14?
Page 238.
Page 238. Okay, and that document essentially was for the municipalities that joined the agreement. The county granted you the authority to annex in an uncontiguous manner if you promise to provide public safety. The cities who joined that agreement said, oh yeah, we'll do that. And we outlined an area that was approved where those would become service boundaries of the given municipalities. So that map's up there. And that map was really made based on where the city's infrastructure was. The county is not a utility provider. They are an emergency service provider. And so that map was made with those 2 things in mind. Where are the city's utilities? Where are the county's public safety areas? Where do they meet? And how can we draw reasonable lines? Because if the cities are going to grow in a non-contiguous manner, then we have to provide the public safety. So we agreed on these areas. The county agreed on these areas, and off we went. There's some talk now that, and I should let the county speak to you about their opinions. But I know that's like a 20-page document that's in your packet with maps, but that 3-minute dissertation is the heartbeat of that document. I think my position, as well as your planning and zoning director's position, is the ISBA works. Doesn't mean it's not controversial. Doesn't mean we don't get complaints from unincorporated residents who aren't being proposed to annex, but from a planning document, yeah, it works, it's reasonable. The second document that is in your packet is a map. If you, who's working that PowerPoint, if you can, Anna, is that you? If you, the cool map is in there.
Go
Up.
Yep.
Right there. That's the cool map. And basically what that map shows is the city, it doesn't show the ISBA boundary, but it's pretty close. If you put a big box around all those colors, that's about the ISBA. But the 2 colors show that everything in that map is pretty much in the boundaries. And let me get up. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll talk really loud. But what's really neat about this map is it shows most of the things that have the highly contentious. Give me this part of the south part of the town. No, that's perfect. You know, you have some issues with the Matheway subdivision. We're having some issues, we've heard back about the yellow is already developed, built out. The orange or brown or whatever that other color is shows the subdivisions that you have approved. And then in the gray box, it's the subdivisions you have approved with the proposed unit count. And then you go to the bottom, boom, and it's like 25,000 and something. That's how we come up with your proposed approved units in the community. And and mind you, we didn't delineate on that because then I think it became too cumbersome. But 25,000 represents single and multifamily development. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, and the commission. I think each of you probably have a different opinion on where growth comes, and as you guys know, we mix everything up and come up with a general consensus, and then there becomes the policy, and thought it was probably important, and you guys thought so too, that you wanted to have a quick conversation amongst ourselves before we go talk to the county commission. And Andy, what's the update on that? We're still working on a date, right?
We're waiting for them. The dates they gave us didn't work, so they're finding some more.
And we're into what now, August?
They're
15th?
into September.
Into September.
The 2 dates they gave us for
Okay.
September didn't work.
All right.
Well, I'll just start because I think, born and raised here in Leesburg, proud of my city, serving on the city council since 2004, going through ups, downs, recession. People fill the room up. We turn down development. I think 27 is the new growth of Leesburg. I think it's, as Al pointed out very clearly, Plantation is there, Royal Highlands is there, good access to the turnpike will get you to Orlando. You got industry that's there, and I just think that the ISB, I don't think we should do anything. I think we agreed to it in 2014. I think it is a great planning source. The last thing we want to do is amend the ISB where we don't have control of the growth of our city, and we're then having to say we're non-contiguous because nothing touches, and then we can't annex anything into our city. So I think the ISB was there for a purpose in 2014. We have adhered to it. Now is our time to grow. I think people are looking at Leesburg as a great opportunity, great growth area. They're bringing high quality products to our city. I think 27 is a prime location due to its accessibility to the turnpike and to Orlando and the South Lake community. I think it just makes Leesburg grow. Won't be overly populated because we're so far away. So for me, I think it's a great time for Leesburg, and it's our time to grow. It's our time. We've done it responsibly over the last 10 to 15 years. We talk about our school system, but the school's not going to build a new school, won't even remodel a school because we don't have rooftops in our city. So we complain about schools, we complain about the neighborhoods. Well, until you start bringing certain income levels into our community, our city, our schools won't get improved, our roads won't get improved because the tax base won't be there. This is an opportunity for us to add to our tax base, grow our city responsibly, so that we can have the things that I think our citizens deserve and have asked for. Unfortunately, you do have people living in rural communities, but unfortunately, somebody decides you own 100 acres or 500 acres. I don't think it's our responsibility to tell them they can't develop their property. So Al knows my opinion on growth. I think it's a great opportunity for the city of Leesburg, and it's great to have developers to come into our city saying, I want to build in Leesburg. So, that's my take on development and growth, and I think it's Leesburg's time. Other commissioners, the floor is open.
Yeah. Well, when I talked about this a couple of meetings ago, my concern was not with growth coming or not coming. It's more, as a commission, taking a proactive stance of what we want it to look like. I feel like a guy that's got a jigsaw puzzle in front of him, but I don't have the box to tell me what the picture looks like. And I'm just trying to put the pieces in. So I think as a unit, if we had a game plan of, so much 55 and above, so much affordable housing, so much, trying to get a better picture of what Leesburg should look like is what I would like to get out of it.
I agree with that, and it would be really nice if we could give staff something. So like when a developer came and said, hey, I want to develop in this area, you say, look, okay, fine, follow these rough guidelines and you're going to be fine. But don't, don't, if you go outside of this, you can bring it to the commission, but it's probably not going to go well. And so when I look at areas, like the mayor was saying, when you look at that area, especially south on 27, especially everything kind of south of 48, right? On the other side, if you go north of 48, you got the lake there and you got some kind of higher end developments. But going south, there's not a whole lot out there other than densely developed retirement communities. And so I think there, I don't want to see a lot more age restricted out there. I do want to see more dense workforce housing where we can get people, going to jobs, whether they're in Leesburg or south or wherever. We had a very contentious one in Sunnyside. Well, Leesburg is becoming such an attractive place to live. Sunnyside is one of the few areas left that's attractive that you can still build. I mean, we've got Palmore Park that's full. We should be pretty particular about what that development looks like. But there should be a standard that says, hey, if you meet these standards, yeah, we'd love for you to build some nice housing out there. It shouldn't, and I think we could find, different areas of the city and say that this is the type of housing we want. And, and if it means, there are areas where we might want 40-foot lots. Well, if you're going to do 40-foot lots, we might need a little nicer on the architectural features because you're going to be saving some money. We want to make sure it's quality product still if it's smaller. So I think things like that would go a long way and just make this a whole lot less contentious and kind of a more fair process.
I feel like I've been a pro-growth commissioner since I've been on the commission. I voted yes on every proposed development except Sunnyside and Dewey Robbins, and I basically hid behind the roads. I just, I just didn't think Sunnyside could support that development. The Dewey Robbins one I didn't like. The Whispering Hills, I'm going to struggle with number 2 road. I know on the McEllier development, I said on the record, that thing punches out on 48. I'm fine with that. The residents all came out screaming about the road, the secondary road on number 2 road. And I believe I said on the record I wouldn't support it if it was on number 2 road. All I'm saying is I'm sensitive to these developments that are off on these country roads that just can't support the traffic. Whispering Hills, if the majority of the traffic comes out on 27, I would be fine with it. My issue has been Sunnyside, I don't even know how wide those roads are, but Sunnyside, they're narrow country roads. Dewey Robbins is a narrow country road, and number 2 road, I just don't see how you can support a lot of growth. I guess if the developer wants to widen the road, that may or may not change my view, but my issue has been roads. That's all I have to say.
I thought that Dewey Robbins had been raised to a standard to accept that. It hadn't,
Yeah, we didn't vote on it. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself.
That one hadn't come back to you yet.
No, but I mean the road itself. Didn't the county do some improvements to the road or?
Dan,
it's a
address
county
that, 'cause
collector road.
I don't remember.
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. I'm not sure about the date, but I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. Dewey Robbins was widened, cleaned up, paved. It looks a lot better. It used to be a dirt road, but it looks good now.
And roads, not that we get to fix them. I mean, I'm like you. I get so frustrated by the roads because we don't have any say over them. The county gets all the tax dollars from our developments, right? So development generates all this tax money. They don't hire any new police officers. They don't hire any new fire, but they get the same ad valorem revenue as if it was in the county, and then they don't use it on the roads. Although supposedly that's changing, and they're actually for the first time in 30 years going to spend some general fund money on roads this year. So hopefully that'll happen. But I understand the frustration there.
Now, there's a lot of things I've learned on the commission, but I've learned that we have no control over roads and no control over red lights.
You got anything, Commissioner Cornell?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, you got enough information?
Yes.
You're more confused than ever. All right, so no information reports tonight. City attorney items,
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
city manager items.
I don't have anything for you
No,
tonight.
thank you, sir. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Bury,
get out there and get your shots. It's not over yet.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Quickly, I attended the FMEA, which is the Florida Municipal Electrical Authority conference last week, and the one thing that was interesting was that there's been a clear shift by the IOUs, so Florida Power, Duke, on this. They used to focus on rates and how the municipals weren't competitive on rates. Well, now that we are competitive on rates, federal way lower than Duke, and Duke's filed for a 10% increase and then a couple more in each of the 4 following years, is now their big push is on reliability and how fast you get your lights turned back on. So I know our current budget went that way, but I think that's gonna be the push because they kind of determine what matters in Tallahassee, and right now it's reliability. So investing in the grid, making sure that when our power goes out, we get it back on quickly is going to be more and more important. So that was kind of the big takeaway. That's it.
Commissioner Connell?
Yeah, so just a clarification, was it my understanding, or was it overall commission understanding that since this got voted tonight on the employee benefit 3-2, if we find out that that's going to be an issue to enforce on police and fire, we would come back and rediscuss this on what we're going to do with the general employees?
Your vote is final pending a change. If you get I was saving this for an email, but it's a reasonable question to ask, Commissioner. Your vote is final, so that will be the action that's carried out. If we get a challenge from the union, I will immediately form the commission and advise what direction you may want to take. That may be to reconsider, that may be to suspend until the challenge is complete. The decision and the recommendation to you to move forward with that is given this type of language. This is Article 26.1, insurance, in the IAFF contract. The city will make available health insurance, life insurance, and accidental death and dismemberment insurance benefits on a group basis to the bargaining unit employees to the same extent and in the same manner that such benefits are provided to other employees, including executive staff. The city shall have the same rights and respect to bargaining unit employees to make or agree with the provider or providers to change in benefits and or the cost thereof to the city and or employees as with the other employees of the city. Provided all city employees, including bargaining unit employees, have available the same benefits as described. This is the important part. The city shall have no obligation to bargain over such changes or the effects during the term of this agreement. Okay, so as your manager and a management employee, I think that language is pretty clear. The IAF might not. I'll leave it at that. And I'll also say the PBA's language is probably pretty similar. If I get a challenge, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Mayor Christian?
Nothing tonight. Move to adjourn.